Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Maya Birkenroad Show with your special guest, Zach Cookman. All right, everybody, how do you do? It is October the 20th, 2015. Welcome to today's live call where Ty will be discussing the book Act Like a Leader, Think Like a Leader. I was, of course, going through the book, had some good things that really grabbed a hold of me. I'm actually going to read a couple chapters over again so I can really pull a lot of things from it. I'm curious to know, Maya, did you have anything that jumped out at the book?
But I purposely invited Patrick Tucker, who's joining us from Omaha, because he read the book. And so I thought maybe he could share a few things that he learned.
Fantastic. Patrick from Omaha, welcome. All the folks out there watching. So we're talking about Act Like a Leader, Think Like a Leader. He even brought his copy to the live call.
Oh, yeah, you should zoom in on that.
Yes. He even has notes. If there's any phone numbers there, we should probably cover those up. Was there anything that really grabbed the hold of you that you went, oh my gosh, I got to underline this and repeat it to myself so I can go around and tell everybody about it and then have discussions?
Absolutely. I thought there was a few things. I love the outside. Do I have to go Watch my ums?
You can say however many ums you want.
All right. So there were a few things. I love the outside comments. Looking backward after you've acted, I thought that was huge. And the success traps. I think she talked about success creates traps so that you don't continue to advance, and I've definitely experienced that.
Like a plateau?
Right. You get comfortable knowing what you know, and so you stop learning, exploring, experimenting, and that's definitely, common in my industry. Which is financial services. So you get comfortable with a certain style of handling your business, a certain style of interacting with people, and you continue to do that instead of learning and growing and acting in new ways to develop. And I thought that was huge.
And I think yesterday Patrick was saying he has trouble doing the act first and then think later.
Right. So I spend a lot of, I do spend time. I have some margin in my day to be introspective. And so you can get trapped in that as well, where you don't get out there and really try new things. You think about them a bit, but you forget to go out then and actually experiment and try them. So it's important to really act, to take these opportunities to do something different than you've done in the past. And so I loved it. I thought it was a great book.
Real quick, I'm a big sports guy, sports fan, and I think something that's applicable to what you're talking about as far as having success and then getting stuck in that routine, you can look at someone that doesn't do that and has been extremely successful, Bill Belichick, who's one of my favorite coaches, who's someone that has adapted as the years have gone on and not just stuck with what was working back when.
Except he hasn't adapted his sweatshirt look. He's still doing the whole...
Well, you got to pick and choose your battles. Yeah. So one of the things I really liked was the comparison about true to yourself and the chameleon. I don't know if that jumped out to anybody else, but I am definitely a true to myself person. And it's not exactly easy to just become a chameleon. You feel as though you're being fake and inauthentic. So that's one of the chapters, which chapter 4, I believe, which was like really heavy that I just kept going over and over again. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, Zach, actually, I agree with that. I think Ty's talked about the chameleon thing in other books. There's been other authors, and I reflected on that a little bit. And
are you a chameleon?
I think I am. I'm probably more of that. So I was a kid in high school that I got along with every group. I was an athlete, but I could hang out with the creative guys, the nerds. Back in the day, we kind of sort of the stoners or
We still have those.
Whatever, the burnouts. So I could adapt myself to any of those kind of groups. And I actually like it because I like people, right? So I end up adapting myself a little bit so that I can understand them at a deeper level. And so I didn't see it as sort of an inauthentic thing, but it was a way to actually learn more about people. Right. But I get it, like when you're acting, doing something different, like it's not normal for me to be on camera. It feels a little bit like I have to, be somebody that I'm not.
You just see yourself in the mirror and you treat it as such.
Right.
Except the mirror doesn't add 10 pounds.
Right.
So
And look at this.
Oh yeah, we got it.
So it was 31 in Omaha last week. And it's whatever it is out here. So it's warm to me today. So
Well, hopefully it's going to calm down. Okay, real quick. So some people have started to join. I have to go over some housekeeping rules to let people know what's going on. So you're watching this on the YouTube player, and we want to make sure that you know if anything happens, such as the image freezing or if audio seems to get in and out of sync. You just need to click the refresh page on the actual search browser page. The refresh button, not the refresh page, sorry. The refresh button, that should fix the issue. If you notice that it's still a problem, it could be something on our end. We just ask that everybody be patient. Give us 1 to 2 minutes. We are aware of it. We have people monitoring these calls around the globe, not just sitting in this room. We have them at our offices in North Carolina. And as a matter of fact, if people want to start letting us know where they're from, that's a lot of cool things to see as well. But we do have people around the globe that are watching that actually let us know if there's any problems. Also, on the bottom right-hand side of the YouTube player, you're going to see a number. You want to click that and select the option for auto. And what that'll do is lessen the chances of you having streaming issues or the images freezing up and audio and all that good stuff. I see someone left a comment that said, Zach, I met you at Ivana Chubbuck's class. I actually remember that happening. I didn't even say... Yes, the acting class. And
Book, right?
it's called The Power of the Actor, which is fantastic. I still might do that class. But yeah, I remember meeting you there. And I didn't even say Ty's name. I just kind of said a little bit about what I was doing. He goes, is that Ty Lopez?
You're hard to miss. Also.
Well, yeah, that's true. I am hard to miss.
I saw someone write a comment below that said, I much preferred the setting outside. If you want to come here and do it outside in 95 and sweat, that's super cool, and you are welcome to do it, but we're not going to do it because it's hot. We are trying to be adaptable. So we are.
Yeah, and if you wanna sit there and try and do a talk with helicopters flying over constantly, and then see people light up the comments about how they can't hear anything because of the helicopters.
Or maybe someone really liked the background of the koi pond. If someone could write maybe a conflicting opinion there, that would be perfect.
Someone on Periscope or Meerkat, when Ty was doing it by the koi pond, asked who was going to the bathroom in the background. They're like, is someone peeing? Okay, so yeah, those are just a couple of the housekeeping rules. As you know, this is an interactive call. You will be able to post some questions. We ask that everybody try to keep them really clear and concise, 1 to 2 sentences preferably. That way it's going to catch Ty's eye a little easier than a short story being up there. Hershey, Pennsylvania, nice. Home of Hershey Kisses. Hollywood, Florida. I used to live in Orlando. I think that's close to Hollywood, Florida. I'm not sure.
I have no idea. Do you know, Patrick?
I don't. I'm from Omaha, people.
Upstate New York, all the way from Australia. Fantastic. Oklahoma Thunder up. Almost, man. We're almost ready for the tip-off. From Atlanta. I'd be curious to know what that humidity looks like in Atlanta right now.
I'm feeling like it. Yeah.
Well, it's been slightly humid in Southern California within the last 3 weeks, which is kind of freaking everybody out, right?
Yeah, well, I said, oh, Mom, is that El Nino? And she goes, no, it's global warming. And I was like, I don't think so. Apparently it has not been this hot for this long in Los Angeles for 50 years.
Yeah, it's pretty mental. Let's see. I need to read the book. Still have to catch up on my reading. Yeah. Take notes. If you have the book handy, flip through it. Hey guys. Hey Maya.
Hi.
Maya says hey.
Hey. I said hey.
Also, real quick, I'm just gonna, since we're already live, we don't need this up here. We're having a contest on seeing who can get the most Instagram followers. These are people that are involved with TyLopez.com. So feel free to find. That's me. This is Ian over in the UK, fellow film guru. He's an actor, producer, director. I didn't know you directed some stuff, Ian. Congrats on that. Cheers. Yeah. He just got a free film greenlit while he was here, I think it was right after you left, right? Anyway, congratulations, Ian. Let's see. Yeah, some social media. Let's get Maya's up there too. Oh, let's put Ty's up there, or else he'll punish us.
We'll put it twice.
Yeah, we don't.
So why are you guys not putting it?
So those are the Instagram. We got the fellow film fellas here. Speaking of which, if there's anybody out there that has some scripts that they've written, we're actually taking submissions at this moment. If y'all want to send us some scripts, we can go through them, take a look at them, get excited about them, maybe even get the film made. So feel free to email them. Where should they send a script? If somebody has a script they'd like to submit to us for possible production.
Zach at Ty Lopez email. Do you have that available? Because we can create that. I'm pretty sure you have one.
If I do, it was not brought to my attention. So
Okay. Well, Zach at Ty Lopez or support at Ty Lopez, and you can say attention Zach.
that's a good idea. Let's do support because we know that exists.
Someone said weather in Atlanta is good now.
Oh, well, lucky for you. All the way from Spain, Boston, Mass, go Pats.
It's not really close to Tampa or whatever.
Oh, Orlando. From Finland, nice.
Norway.
How was my day? So far, so good. From Bulgaria, Houston, Texas. By the way, if you're in Houston, Texas, and you need to refinance a house, you can Google my dad, who's a guru of refinancing. He doesn't have an Instagram, but I can write his name. Just Google this fella. He's based out of Dallas, but he does a lot of work in Houston, Texas. Noel, like the season, Christmas season, Noel, and then my last name, Cookman. Down here, this is Charlotte. Some of y'all have seen Charlotte.
Sure of that.
Of what?
Of the Instagram. Does Ian know we're promoting Instagram?
Oh, I don't know. I just wanted to do it because he's a good fella. Good fella. Hey, from Portugal, Orange County, California, just a little bit south of us. Colorado, Cambridge, UK. A lot of folks in the UK, which is always kind of cool to me. Right. From Seattle, Buffalo, Australia. Man. Hey. Yeah, so if you're in Australia and it's 6 a.m. or even 3 in the morning and you're watching, I'm curious to know if you stayed up for this call or if you're waking up. Let us know because that's always fascinating to me as well. Hey, the guy that I met at Chubbuck's class, I apologize. I don't remember your name. Feel free to type your name there so I can see it. Or contact me on Instagram. I'd be curious to know how everything went if you're still in the class.
Sri Lanka. See that?
Oh, nice. Sri Lanka. So Maya, what should everybody be sure to do with the YouTube player?
Well, you want me to repeat the housekeeping if anyone's just joining us? Well, Zach already said it so eloquently earlier, but basically on the YouTube video on the right hand bottom corner, there'll be sort of numbers, right? It just has a little pop out, and you can click normal. Is that right? Oh, auto, and that'll set basically sets the pixelation in the audio to be optimal so that it doesn't do anything weird for you. Right, guys? Right, Zach? Is that right? Yeah. Okay, cool. If anything pauses for you, go ahead and refresh the page. You should be good. We do have people monitoring. Rick Fields in North Carolina is watching. Yeah, you got to put him up. I will tell him that you are sorry. But one thing that's awesome about today, Patrick, who's joining us to watch today's live call, actually read the book. If you did get a chance to read the book, I think that it tends to be a better way to watch this call because you already have your own things that you recognize in it, and when Ty highlights other ones, maybe it's the same ones as you or ones that you might have missed.
Yeah, it's a good idea to treat this as like a Cliff Notes thing. Reading it definitely helps.
I thought you meant the Instagram handles.
I'm sorry.
I was like, no.
Let me say that again. I don't think it's a good idea to treat this.
Yes. Oh, hey, it's Grant. Hi, Grant. Remember Grant? I think you met him at Ty's house at the Mastermind. How's it going? Tell us how your hiring and other business growing adventures are going. Grant in Omaha.
Afterlife marketing? Oh, affiliate.
What? Oh, so affiliate marketing. We have not really pushed any affiliate marketing right now. Grant, where are you living? Omaha? Or San Fran. That's where he went. Yeah.
How's it going? Tell us how you're hiring and other business.
Zach, we just read that out loud. Did you not pay attention? Me and Patrick were just discussing that comment.
I'm so sorry. I was looking at everything else.
Yes. You were busy. It's fine. If you do have, though, one other cool thing, Patrick and Zach both mentioned a cool thing that they learned from the book. If you read it and you want to post in the comments something that you think was really interesting or innovative and you want to post that, that'd be great. Or if you have a specific question for Ty, you can post now. Like Zach said, something simple. Are you doing something weird behind me?
No, I was just scooting this.
Okay. I'm like seeing funny, but I wasn't looking at myself because I'm not that much of a narcissist. I was trying to pay attention to the comments section.
Should be.
Anyways, So yeah. So Ty will be here in just a moment. Someone said, "Where's Ty, the guy?" Patrick, what was the call you were watching that somebody was like saying something weird? What did I say to them?
Basically, you told me.
Someone was, what were they complaining about? Ty coming on like 10 minutes in?
Could it be timely?
Yes.
If you've been on more than one of these calls, you just get ready for about 12, 15.
Yes.
12, 20.
And also, it wouldn't make sense for Ty to come up and go, here's how to use the YouTube player. Also, please tell me where you're from and here's the book, because that's not a good way for Ty to spend his time talking to you. Where in North Carolina are you? The person who said that. Dallas, Texas. Are you a Mavericks fan? We just had Mark Cuban here. He's a Mavericks fan.
Dallas, Texas.
The Sydney, Australia person, by the way, Zach, says that he woke up for the call. He did not stay up all night. I think that's better. And I saw one cool thing that I can't see. Can someone scroll for me?
Is this an advanced money talk or the free one?
This is advanced money talk. What? Rick? No. Oh, someone said, has Ty ever tried the isolation deprivation technique? I don't know what that is. We should Google it. No?
He tried it, but his mistake was he invited me to go as well, and I wouldn't shut up. So it really did. It accomplished nothing. The deprivation type of, it's like you remove yourself from all.
Do you like go to a place to do that? I've never heard of that. And you and Ty went in a single person one together?
Well, it was like a spa room, sauna.
Interesting. That's weird.
Has one of those.
I made up the whole thing. We didn't go anywhere.
Okay, well that's different. There's the new thing though, the cryotherapy, the freezing thing. Have you done that?
I have not done that.
Has anyone done that? You did it? Is it cool? No, it is not cool. Okay. Who said it's cool?
It's like an ice bath in seconds, right?
Yes. Kobe does it. A lot of pro athletes do it.
Ben Greenfield had one where it's just neck down. He's sticking his head out of it.
That sounds like torture, but people said that it's really, really good for you. Yeah. Yeah, can you scroll, Nate? Because we don't need to be stuck there. Sorry? Which one? No, we already said, yeah, we answered it. San Jose.
We're not going to be periscoping or meerkatting the whole cat.
We're not going to be streaming this. In Melbourne, Australia, I go to sleep at 9 and wake up at 5. Good on you. That's a good 8 hours. Charlotte.
Yes. Charlotte. I lived in Plaza Midwood.
Oh, sorry.
Yay for the Queen City.
Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte's like, why are you yelling? UK. Switzerland is cool. 9:12 p.m. That's it. So you're 9 hours and 6 minutes ahead of us? Or 8 hours and 54 minutes, is what they
I
said.
thought it was from Australia yesterday.
Betsy in HR thought Patrick was
Minnesota
Australian.
coming through.
She's like, are you from New Zealand?
No, I'm from
That was weird. Not the same.
Fargo.
North Dakota? No, Minnesota.
From Minnesota.
Minnesota. Midwest is good.
Who's that?
Is Ty going to try the approaching a girl with a guitar technique? I don't know what that means. Do you, Zach?
No?
Great. Thanks for your input. I don't know what that means. So let's see. Do you recommend reading the book using the SMART reading strategies and just focusing on that book and not all the other books more labor? So there was an interesting guy that was asking Ty questions at Thrive. Ty spoke at a conference called Thrive in Las Vegas. It was actually really cool. Robert Herjavec was there from Shark Tank. Ty spoke, and like 200 people followed him out of the talk and were like stalking him. So we had two guys that know him holding up the Periscope stream, and one guy kept asking over and over. He's been trying for 17 years to speed read. And Ty was like, that's too long of an experiment. So you can try.
Crossed over to mistake.
Yes, because like this is one of my favorite Ty quotes. He says, the only difference between an experiment and a mistake is the length of time with which you run the experiment. And he who experiments most always wins. So what you were talking about earlier, you were saying trying different things, not plateauing. The guy who was trying to speed read for 17 minutes, years, that's what. Oh,
Whoa.
in high school?
Everyone's friend, just like you were saying.
I wonder who that is.
You're honest. That's good. Let's see. Oklahoma City. We can find their email later.
Look me up. Send me an email.
That's so fun. How did you know that also? Did they recognize you? Must have. Do you look exactly the same as you looked in high school?
Except that I had the 80s hair.
I need to see a photo of that. That's so fun. What? Iro? Gyro. Do you know anyone named Gyro?
Not by that.
Well, maybe that person's not actually gone to school with you. So we'll find out later, I'm sure. Let's see. London, England. We'll ask Ty. Maybe Ty mentioned that. But what I was saying is about the Periscope and the guy who was saying he's been attempting to speed read for 17 years. He kept asking Ty the same question over and over again. Yeah. So he was like being true to himself, but not adapting at all and just continually hitting a wall. And Ty said he was very nice about it, but he said, it sounds like you're kind of stubborn. You should try a new experiment. Don't try to speed read. It's not working.
And books like this are great in that even if you don't have time to read it at great length, you can hit the highlights, and at the end of every chapter, she has the highlights from the chapter. So you can, read the beginning, the end of the book. Oh, yeah. And you can hit these, too much? You can hit these summaries and get the main points from the chapter. And then if you have more time later, you can go back, read those chapters that are meaningful and impactful to you. So I love books that do this. Not every book does this, but this was an easy one to do in that regard.
Yeah. Did you read the highlights first, or do you read the chapter first?
I read the chapter first. I had enough time to get through it, but then the second time through, I just did the highlights and then my underlining and made notes from that in the back. So the key takeaways for me.
It's good.
I'll come back to the books later. Some people will journal and write. I don't do that. I don't have the time to do that, or not really a writer, so to speak. So I'll just come back and just use the book over and over again. So
some people like notes. Some people have very good recall. Ty has incredible recall. Ty says one of his tricks for recall is he makes it a story. So if you can, there's Grant.
Hey, Grant.
Cool. Awesome. Omaha and the Midwest will always be home.
Physical therapy thing.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Uptown, baby. Do you mean New Orleans?
Something else Ty says he does. Something else Ty will talk about doing to recall is talk about it. So before everybody knows him as holding his phone up and talking, and then doing the, we'll have you face this way. Right. Yeah, it's like theater. You don't want your back to the audience. But no, he said back when he would just film himself talking about what he just read, and that kind of gets it stuck in the brain as well.
He challenges people on this call and on the other calls he does about a book to do the same thing. So after you read the book or after you watch this call, record yourself for 2 minutes. Because one of the best ways to learn is to teach it. Yeah. So you standing up here, whatever lessons you were just teaching, you'll probably remember those for a lot longer. So that's one reason why Ty is able to remember so much, because he teaches. So I don't have a joke, though. No. Do you have a joke, Zach?
Nothing appropriate for a business live call. But you can come watch me at the Comedy Store and Laugh Factory. Yeah, we're opening for Seinfeld.
Tell about that.
You open for Seinfeld?
No, I put on my Instagram page, I took a picture of the marquee of the Pantages on Hollywood Boulevard. Seinfeld was there. I went to go see him, and so when I was leaving, I took a picture of the marquee, and I posted it on Instagram and said, now this is after the show was over, so it's about midnight, and I said, come out and watch me perform stand-up as I open for one of the greatest legends in comedy history. And I got lit up on Facebook and texts and people messaging me, asking when did this happen. Folks that knew me back home were congratulating me, and it was just a fun little social experiment to see how people would just respond to the fact. Anybody could have taken that picture.
Your comment was if you were actually opening for Seinfeld.
Oh, right. If I was really, truly opening for Seinfeld, I would have posted a picture with Seinfeld, not a picture of the marquee that every Joe Schmo can take. So I hear Ty is approaching. I hear the audio of him in the distance getting closer and closer. Real quick, so about everybody's joined now. Before we pass it off to Dr. Lopez, one last reminder. We're watching on the YouTube player. So on the bottom right-hand side, you'll see a number. Click on that. There'll be a drop-down box. Select the option of auto. That's going to help it avoid any type of freezing or any audio issues. If that still happens, just click the refresh page. Should take care of it. If it doesn't, that might be something on our end, but just give us 1 to 2 minutes. We'll get that taken care of. Also, remember when you're chatting with Ty on here, try to keep it clear and concise. 1 to 2 questions is a better option than a short paragraph for catching Mr. Lopez's eye.
Hathaway meeting.
Me,
We'll go. We'll probably be there.
Patrick.
Planning. You live. He
I
cheats.
can host you. I cheat.
He's off the street. Did you say off the street or up the street? Yeah.
Up the street.
All right. I don't need that. All right. No, I'm okay. Cool. So let's get going. Met Patrick. He's in the inner circle. Not many people I've let in the last couple years. I think 6 or 10. Man, I don't even think 10. So, yeah, let's jump right into it. Get talking about leadership. Any common questions that you saw? Maya?
No questions except for me to tell us.
I mean, any common questions that you saw? Okay. So let's start. I'm just going to jump in since I'm trying to break a running goal. That's why I'm a little late. I took off running at like 11:30, trying to get back in time, but that's probably my weakest thing is running. I read this Will Smith thing you guys have heard me talk about where he says, all you have to do big things, you just have to be able to do 2 things, run and read. So I'm taking Will Smith's advice. I've been doing more. I never liked running. I don't mind sprinting, but so that's why I'm a little late. My pace broke on the way back. It's a tough run. All right, so first thing in Act Like a Leader, Think Like a Leader, assuming most of you read this, is I've got some different notes, but I think the most important one, this is for those of you who, hopefully you guys have seen that talk that I did with Gary Keller inside the accelerator, where he built the largest residential real estate company in the world, and he also wrote books, several books that have sold 2 million copies, which is quite a feat. And his big thing in the one thing is you have to learn to embrace chaos. So number 1 here from this book, which is along the same vein, he says it's all too easy to fall hostage to the urgent over the important. Urgent over important. I'm not going to talk too long on this, but I thought it's worth mentioning. Each of you that's building something, whatever it is you're building, you're going to get at least, I think on average, you will get 5 to 10 urgent things come up per day in the average adult life. If you're an entrepreneur, that might jump to 10 to 20, depending on how many people you have, your growth rate, and so on. But what Gary Keller, you should listen, make sure you guys listen to that talk. It's in the accelerator now, right? Josh? The Gary Keller one, is that one live? Yeah. So there's a free version on YouTube. You should watch that. That's available to everybody, but then there's 3 private parts of it. The private videos are only available to you guys. So, his big thing is you have to learn to embrace chaos. Without a doubt, this is a skill. Just like people ask me, Ty, how do you brand your website? How do you do social media? How do you build sales funnels? These are all very common questions, but I never get anybody ask me this question right here, which is, how do you build the skill of knowing what's urgent and what's important? So I have this little test that I do, which I posted on Twitter the other day, which says if it won't matter in 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month, then you have to let those things be chaotic, Now, it's a little tricky because if you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you feel like everything matters, but in reality, it doesn't. And what you have to do, I just came back from Las Vegas. I spoke at a conference with Gary Vaynerchuk, and who else was there? The guy from Shark Tank, Robert Herjavec, and there's some interesting people there. And I was talking about this mind laboratory. So one of the things that I think every one of us, if we want to live a good life, at the end of your life, there should be on your tombstone, one of the descriptions of you should be, mad scientist or he or she had a little bit of mad scientist in them. I hope that that's on my grave, because, you know, in many ways I've been some level of a mad scientist, tried different things, and as you get older, the tendency is to not want to do that. Those of you watching that are really young, you might go, that comes naturally to you, but humans become more risk averse the older we get. So the danger of risk aversion as you age, which is natural, some risk, you know, Patrick here is a financial advisor, and one of the things you learn in advising people is that the older you get, you need to be a little more focused on safety, because if you're 80 years old and you invest all your money in one real estate deal and the deal goes bad, you don't have enough years to compensate for that loss. You don't have 30 years to make your money back. If you're 18 years old, you might want to bet the whole hand on one business, because if it goes bad, you've got 20, 30 years to make up for that. So there is some wisdom to a level of risk aversion as you age, but in terms of experimenting, you can control all good experiments, good laboratories. They create controlled experiments. So when it comes to, you know, I'm trying to, as we do this whole program, I'm trying to assign a little bit more homework. I don't want that to feel like a burden or onerous or anything, but I think it's important to take action. So one of the things that I want you to think about here in the urgent versus important, and let's talk about this for a second, is what's an experiment that you could try of cutting something out that feels urgent, and let's test how urgent it is. I'll give you a good example. I was listening to Steve Ballmer, and Steve Ballmer, of course, the CEO of, for many years, of Microsoft and the right-hand man of Bill Gates, and somebody asked him, he was on CNBC or something, and she said, how do you balance work and life and kids? Because he has a good family. I think he has a fairly large family, but he said he just made a spreadsheet, and he said, you know, I didn't go to every one of my kids' basketball games, but I went to enough of them that when they get older, they're not going to look back and be like, Dad deserted us, right? So what he was basically saying is, it's important to go to his kid's game, but it's not urgent to go to every one. And so I'm not a parent, so I'm not going to give parental advice. But that was Steve Ballmer's advice as a parent and a man who was very successful. Of course, now he owns the Clippers, which I think is cool. So in your life, maybe your experiment is, you know, not going to one of your kids' basketball games. I know that's anathema, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for that. But at the end of the day, if you use logic, now if you don't go to any of your kids' basketball games, Steve Ballmer says, you know, your kids are going to remember that. But I doubt his kids are going to go, oh, my dad only went to one game a week. He should have gone to 2 games a week. They're going to understand. Kids are not stupid. I was watching The Office yesterday. I've been running a cool experiment. So I've been pretty anti-TV most of my life. This is just an example of me doing an experiment in my life. So I grew up, my grandma, one of the reasons I'm a big reader, my mom was a single mom, and so my grandma helped raise me a lot when I was young in the first 5, 6, 7 years. Till my mom got remarried, and my grandma, they hated TV. My grandma and grandpa, I remember as a little kid, they called it the idiot box, they called it the boob tube, it was like whatever, and they were big on books, which I'm thankful for. But I read an interview of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the basketball player. It was in, I forget, Sports Illustrated or something, just a few years ago. I met him. He's a very tall guy. They understated his height. He's probably 7'2" now. He was probably 7'3", which is why he's unstoppable with a sky hook at 7'3", for those of you who like basketball. But, so I met him, and I kind of started, whenever I meet somebody, I do a little research, because now I have context. And he said one of his regrets in life was not watching enough TV. Like, he went to the other extreme. He said, I lived through the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and I lost out on current pop culture because he only read books about past history. So that was kind of mulling over my head, that maybe I've been too extreme over here. And then some of you have met my friend Nam. He's an entrepreneur, but also he won the World Poker Tournament a few years ago. There's multiple ones. He won one of them, I think San Jose or something. And he was telling me he's tried this experiment, but he's been watching The Office. So, and he says if he watches 3 episodes of The Office and falls asleep to that, he sleeps 10 times better. So I've been experimenting with that, and I think he's onto something. It's a funny show, and you know, at the end of the day, there was a point I had about that there was a line from it related to parenting. I'll remember in a second. But that's a little side note relative to this. You know, if you set up your life as a lab and you're continually running a new experiment, who knows if in a week from now, if you meet me, I may have moved on from that experiment. I usually go in bursts. So let's think of one thing. Let's leave some comments here. One thing you can, and let's focus on not adding things in. Watching The Office is adding. But one thing you can cut out and see how urgent it is. I mean, see how important it is. I know it feels urgent. So what's something urgent that we can put it to the litmus test? If you don't do it for one day, you wake up and you go, ooh, did I actually miss it? And you'll sometimes find you didn't. I've been working with 9 different personal trainers, different things. Some of them are jujitsu, some are boxing. And I found this one guy that's amazing named Jason. He's a former, I think he was a pro soccer player, top collegiate soccer player, and he's in amazing shape. And he says this rule applies here with working out. He says for him, and he's in insane shape, like on a DEXA score, he's like 12% body fat. If that's the equivalent of a caliper test being like 5 or 6%, because DEXA is more rigid. So you're talking to a guy at peak of health, and he goes, most people go to the gym for too long. Now, if you're trying to be a pro bodybuilder, you got to be in there a lot longer because you have to sculpt every muscle for competition. But in terms of the urgent over the important thing is like my favorite Bruce Lee quote, you know, it's not the man. He doesn't fear the man who practices 1,000 kicks. He fears the man who practices 1 kick a day for 1,000 days straight. And so you could apply this to your business. You could try this in health. You know, we feel it's urgent to go to the gym all the time, and so we end up never going to the gym for most humans. But what is actually important that you can't skip out on it? And he says, you know, 15 to 45 minutes a day, the average person can completely not just get in decent shape, but almost get to a performance level. And there's a lot of science on this, what they call HIIT, high intensity interval training, where instead of jogging, what I was actually doing while I'm 5 minutes late here for this, I try to come in around 12:15, is that I was walking, sprinting all the way down to the boulevard down there. So that high intensity stuff is very powerful, and you end up getting a lot done. So here's a good example. Email. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're not careful, every email you're going to be reading. I'll tell you, I have gone through the whole rigmarole on email. From reading email 2 hours a day and replying to, I would say I do 2 hours a year now, maybe. I probably do 30 seconds a day of email, maybe 2 minutes on a big day. Lots of days, 0, okay? Now, here's what this, and I'll tell you what happened. Now, I'm not saying everybody can do that, okay? But here's the result of my experiment. Because as a leader, to tie this all in, you have to have maximum time to lead. I know that sounds too simple, but a leader is at the front. I'm reading a great book, if you want to read a history book, called Rebel Yell. It's the story of Stonewall Jackson, the general in the Civil War, the Southern Confederate general. And he was a true leader in many ways. And one of the ways was he was always attentive to the maximum, what was the most important thing to do. It's a great book. The guy who wrote it, I think he almost won a Pulitzer Prize for his last book. He's one of my favorite writers. Rebel Yell is what it's called. So when I was doing an experiment of email, so I was reading email 1-2 hours a day in terms of reading and replying, and then I was like, let me just go a day and not answer any email. And what happens is at first you do miss some important things. So you freak out and you go, I missed that, right? But what ends up actually happening is people stop emailing you. That's what if you don't reply to, it's like voicemail. I'm sure each of you have probably gotten to a point where you've done this experiment without even knowing. Not many people leave voicemail anymore. Still, older generation does, but if you never answer somebody's voicemail, eventually they get the hint and stop doing it, and they'll text you, you know. Most for me is mostly text now. So that was a great experiment that I realized email is not as important. Now, I do have some people that monitor some of my other email addresses, but I've found at maximum I get 1 to 5 really important emails, and I can answer them or review them in under 2 minutes a day. So that's a great one. I find most entrepreneurs way too much on email. Again, few of you, if you're working in the older market, you're working with seniors, 50 plus, you're gonna have to spend more time on email and voicemail. But still test it. You'd be surprised how much time's wasted. So that's mine. What is another person's here, a specific example of something that takes a lot of time? Let's put it to the test. Somebody put here, checking up emails, text message, app notifications. So one thing I've done just on my app notifications, for most of them on my phone, this is a little simple thing, I've turned them almost all off. And the ones that are still on are just because I haven't gotten around to turning them on. The only one I really need on is my main company. We have like an intercompany texting system. And I've turned that off with no harm. Because what happens is, you're not stupid. If you're on this call, I'm guarantee you're not a moron. Well, if you turn off the app notifications, okay, you'll just create a mental routine where you check it once an hour or 3 times a day. So sometimes we freak out that so I'll tell you what I do, because I have been afraid of missing things. I put all my important apps on the front page. I know a lot of you put folders and all this. I don't think that works as well because of the availability bias of the brain. We tend to only focus on things that are readily available. So what I do here is on page 1 of my phone, it's only the apps that I basically check every day. And I kind of mentally, all the apps that I don't need to check every day, I put on the top. Like I have like calculator, camera. I'm naturally going to go to those, okay? If I got some picture I need to take, I'm going to naturally go there. I don't need a reminder. And then I have my ones that I need to monitor every day. I have on the bottom 2 lines. Some of you don't even have as many. I do a lot of stuff on social. But the point being there, it's a nice little system. Everything on the other pages of my apps are things I rarely use. Okay, so app notifications, be careful. You know, app notifications made Mark Zuckerberg rich because everybody gets that little, and very important to turn off, for the most part, turn off Facebook. Facebook is a real time suck. So what I do with Facebook, just check it once a day, you know? Check it once a day in the morning. I have a little routine in the morning. I check all my mission critical stuff, and then I usually don't check it till the next day. Now, this is much better if you have some assistants working for you, which brings me to my next point, okay? And this isn't necessarily in the book here. And I'm going to come back and hear what your guys are. Leave a comment here below on something you could cut out. But number 2, if you're a leader, you have to have somebody to lead. Okay? Now, obviously, if you're in business, you're going to lead your customers. But I believe that most people should build up a larger staff than they have. Okay, there's always exceptions. There's solo entrepreneurs, but they're very rare. I think a good goal in the long run, you don't have to build this eventually, is 10 people. Okay, I've talked about this before, but let me rehash this for those of you who haven't heard me talk on this. Why did I pick that number 10? And remember, it's not a magical number. It's not literally 10. It's the rough vicinity of 10, and here's why. You've got 4 main parts of your business. One is the product and service, whatever you're doing, okay? You got to have a product that people or service that people want to buy. Number 2, you need the financial side of things. Accounting, payroll, HR, all that, legal, lawyers, okay? So that's the second section. The third section is marketing. Everybody needs marketing. I just watched that new Steve Jobs movie with Michael Fassbender. I like the Ashton Kutcher one, by the way, a lot better if you want to see a movie about Steve Jobs. Did you guys see it yet?
Yeah, I thought it was great.
But you're an artist. It's a great artistic, it's not a good business person story, the new Steve Jobs. But it is cool, cinematography was good. That's what you liked, right, Josh?
I like that. I like the script a lot.
Yeah, the script, but it's...
I watched it with Quentin Tarantino. You liked this.
Oh, really? You saw it with Quentin Tarantino? That's awesome. Where was that? At the ArcLight? So the second thing, so I was going to say, Steve Jobs was a marketing genius. He said, you got to have good products and you got to know how to market them. So that's third. Everybody needs some marketing. And then fourth, you need to be able to deliver the product. You need, whether it be your website, most people that's a website person, but also if you do any shipping or anything. So that's 4. And then you need at least a leader. So that's 5. So that's 5 people. But then I never think you should have just one person doing something. Why? If you were in the 67 steps, one of the principles that I learned from Joel Salatin was belt and suspenders. Joel always told me, Ty, I wear a belt and I wear suspenders. And I said, why? He said, well, when the belt breaks, my pants don't fall down. I still have my suspenders, and vice versa. So if you only have one marketing person, what if she gets pregnant and, she wants to be a stay-at-home mom? What if she gets, one of them quits, needs a vacation? What if one of them gets overwhelmed with too much work? So you have 5 main roles in a business, and you multiply that by 2. So now you have 10. Now you could be one of those people. So you need 2 leaders. So I believe for those of you starting off entrepreneurs, some of you have more employees. I have an office near here. One of my offices has about 60 people. So I follow the same thing with 60 full-time employees that work for me. I divide them up in multiple groups. I've got those 4 main categories, got leadership. So you're one of the leaders, I'm assuming. And then you need a protege or somebody maybe who's a more advanced CEO or a business partner. So that's you 2. You need 2 people in the product side, helping you develop new stuff, helping you stay on the cutting edge, helping you service the customers. You need 2 people usually in finance. It's good to have a CFO, even if they're only part-time. I don't love part-time, but if you're a small company, your CFO can also kind of be a person that's the visionary like you. Your CFO can almost kind of be the other leader, but for me, we're a little bit bigger. I have them separate. So I have CPAs that work for me full-time. And so you have the financial division. If you're a little bigger, you'll need HR. When you're small like that with 10 people, oftentimes you can blend roles a little bit. But you still need somebody, even if it doesn't take all day to do your books, you still need somebody that's their primary thing, and the rest of the day they can do other stuff. Somebody wants me to write them down. So we have, the product people that help you, whatever you're doing, research new product, keep the product quality control up to date, so on, or the service. You have the second role. You have the financial people. These are lawyers that might work with you, accounting, CFO. Number 3, you have your marketing. These are very important, okay? And the 4th, a lot of people, it's going to be your website guys and designers. But if you're in retail, they're people that work in the warehouse or whatever they might be. These are the people that help you delivery, you could say. And then on top of what this book is about is the 5th category, which is the leaders, or you could call them the visionary people. So for Patrick, for example, here, he has a financial practice. So for him, he's the leader, visionary. Product people could be people working with the customers, other financial advisors in that case. Delivery could be the website people maybe manage your videos, social networks and so on. That's the delivery of the product. Some businesses, these 2 blend together a little bit. But if you have 2 of each of these, that's 10 people. So for some of you, it's overwhelming to think of having 10 employees, because if you're on average paying $50,000, that's $500,000 a year. But you have to be logical about it. First of all, you don't have to go from 0 employees to 10. It can be over 5 years. It could be over 18 months. It could be over 18 years. There's no black and white answer, but what happens is, if you look at businesses, you can't find any example of somebody who did big things, who didn't understand the importance of leveraging other people's time and energy. It's very precarious to have a business only around you. What happens if you get sick? Statistically, by the time you're in your 40s, you have a 30% chance of having a long-term disability. That's 3 to 6 months. It could be, sickness. It could be a car accident. It could be you just need a break. You have mental, you're just like overwhelmed. You need to take a break. And that's a healthy way to live. At the end of the day, you don't want to look back and go, everything was on my shoulders. So that's what today's talk about. I'm going to keep kind of going through what I've found, leadership. Some of it's in this book. Remember, these calls are not book summaries. Some people sometimes are like, hey, Ty, you're not summarizing the book. It's not how this works for those of you who are new. This is us going through. You're going to need different things than other person that's in this program watching this interactive live call today. So, you need to read the book. It's like personal training. You can't, no matter how rich you are, no matter how rich Bill Gates is, he cannot hire somebody else to work out for him. You can't do it. You can hire somebody to work out with you, near you, motivate you, be by your side. But at the end of the day, like my cousin, she's now become one of the top soccer players in the United States. She's Division I at Cal, one of the, I won't say which state school for privacy, but one of the local big schools here. And she says, I said, what's the best thing you ever learned as an athlete? She'll probably become a pro soccer player. She said, Coach always says you get out what you put in. So each of you got to put in your own reading. If you struggle with reading, hopefully audio books. If you go to Audible, download this book, set it to 1.5 speed. If it's a 6-hour book at 1.5, it'll be 4 hours. You got 2 weeks. If you listen 20 minutes, every other day, boom, you're done with these books. So let's continue to talk. So we have this. Let me take some questions here. Ty, how do you determine what you pay an employee? I mean, for me, I tend to not pay. I'm not super cheap. I tend to pay a little bit above what the industry standard is. But then over time, I want to get people onto performance pay. So you have some people, I love, the easiest people to hire is salespeople. By the way, sales could come either under marketing or product, okay, depending on what you're doing. But you probably want to have 1 or 2 salespeople. I can't think of a business that you don't want to have 1 or 2 salespeople. Marketing, I should really put /sales. Sorry to add that. Marketing is people who do automated sales. That's people who, take out advertisements on the internet or on magazines and newspapers and TV. But sales is just more one-on-one marketing. So I would say if you don't have a salesperson, you're just leaving money behind. You're selling yourself short. So I have a whole sales team. We have a whole marketing team. We probably have now, for one of the companies, I kind of divide up the companies, but one of them has maybe 18 people that do sales and then maybe 5 or 10 that do marketing. So you're talking 20 or 30 people out of 60 people for that company are in sales and marketing. Because you don't need as many, like as your company grows, if you have 60 people, you don't need 20 finance people. 1 or 2 people can handle a lot. But then as you grow a business, you need more leaders. So I have what I call the CEO protege program. It's kind of like in a mentorship. So right now I have 4 people, really 3 in that. So I'm training them to be CEOs. Some of them are like Maya's one of them. She's been through the program here for a while. She's pretty much kind of graduated. And now has 2 people under her that she's replicating her skills into their brain. Duplication. So you got to have someone to lead. Okay? A few questions. So I determined to pay an employee, pay a little bit. Could you not have a leader visionary in the product? Yes, but yes. You're going to have some of this crosses over. But when I say leadership visionary, I'm talking about the big direction of the company. Remember what Alan Nation used to always tell me, you've heard it before, you gotta have somebody working outside the business, not inside. It's kind of like a swimming pool. You got to have a lifeguard sitting there, and he can't be swimming. If they're swimming, you're distracted. If you're swimming in the pool, you also don't have a bird's eye view. So somebody could be drowning in the corner and you're over there splashing around, playing around, working around, and then this person dies. The lifeguard is always in a high chair out of the pool. They never get wet unless they have to. And that's a good analogy here, what I was saying about urgent versus important. It's important if you are a lifeguard to jump in and save people, or even ideally prevent them from dying, right? You don't always want to wait to the end, but that's what a lifeguard does. Every once in a while they blow the whistle and go, wait, no running. Hey, you're too far out there. I became a junior lifeguard, which is the training to become a beach lifeguard in San Diego. So I remember, you have to be careful of getting too close. You have to be outside of it. And yeah, so experiment somebody's doing with number 1, cutting out killing time with pseudo-intellectual friends. Good. There's some friends you should just experiment not ever talking to again. Trust me. And you know, the crazy thing is, some people you think are your friends, if you stop texting them or calling them, they'll never call you back, which is a good sign that they weren't good friends to start with. You know, if you're always leading the conversation, they're not very good friends. Okay, I'll grab a little bit to eat here. Ty, do you bring people in as a W-2, regular full-time employee, or 1099? For me, I usually bring them in W-2. We're a little bigger. You can bring people on as a test, as a contractor. You just have to watch the law. There's specific laws on who can be considered a contractor. And in a lot of states, they come after you for back taxes and FICA and so on. So it's better, look at the government. If you're in the US, there's a test. There's like 7 things or something. If they're doing these things, then you can't pay them as a contractor. Ty, what's the best book to learn deal structuring? That one depends on the deal. Because if you're making a hedge fund, I bought some of those books are like $300-400 on structuring a fund. If you're talking about raising investment money, there's a good book that I have called Pitch Anything, about Oren Clough. There's quite a few venture capital books, but here's the deal. If you're selling a business or buying a business, one of the better than a book is usually an accounting firm. It's kind of like if you want to sell a house, you usually bring in a realtor that sells a lot of houses around there who can tell you their gut feeling and be like, hey, look, I'm buying a house right now in Hollywood, and I'm trying to decide what offer I want to make because it's not a house that's on the market. And I'm going to use a realtor who sells a lot of houses in those streets around there, because there's no book on that. It's a dynamic, living, breathing thing. So I need to bring in someone who's done some real estate right there and go, what's your gut feeling? Is this house, worth $2 million? Is it worth $3 million? Is it 2.5? Is it 5? Is it 1? Because what happens if you try to do that from a book, you're going to end up being way off target, usually. Okay, can you go down here? Hi. For those of you still in a job, do you angle in to get leadership positions? I think without being a kiss ass and a brown noser, I don't think there's anything wrong. So there's 2 answers to that. Some companies, the bosses are oblivious. No matter how much you do, no matter how much you merit promotion, they're never going to promote you. If you're in that situation, you generally have to switch companies. There's no solution if you want. So if you're in that situation, there's no angling that's going to work. If you're at a place, and I'd say about 40% of companies are like that. 60% of companies, people are smart enough who, if you become a badass, they'll notice. All right, Ty. So are there any specific questions, Nathan, you see? Yeah. So lots of people are asking about dividing the company into departments. Where's an example of one of them? Oh, Ty, would you divide the sales department into other subdivisions? Yeah, you can as you get bigger. When you only have 10 employees, it's not viable. But yeah, so marketing, for me, you have customer support is under sales. Phone sales, I call them, they're a blend of inside and outside sales. So inside sales, for those of you who don't know, those are people who sit in your office and sell pretty much on the phone or email. Outside sales are people who travel. So I have both. So I have customer support. Those are people who service your existing customers who call in and go, I need a refund, or I can't log in to the website. So we have customer support. Then we have outside sales, people who travel if need be. Then we have inside sales people on the phone. And then we have marketing people. And they build ads. They do Facebook and Google and AdWords. They manage affiliates. So these things can get divided into 50 teams. So I kind of have it as divisions, and then you have teams underneath that. So yes, the answer is for sure. Ty, how and where to find a business partner that complements your personality? So under leadership, it's oftentimes you and a business partner or you and a CEO type. Okay, you have to draw, there's that, unless you have a lot of money. If you have a lot of money like Warren Buffett or a lot of cachet and respect among business people, you can pretty much just spread the word and people are going to come to you and want to work for you. At the beginning, that's not going to happen. So a lot of times you have to spend about 18 months cultivating relationships with different people. I often find going to industry stuff the best. So you go to every business has an industry standard conference. Go to those, and some of them might have more than one. That's by far the best place. That's the second best place. The first and primary way is referrals. I find to be the best. Somebody in a business says you should talk to my buddy. But if you don't have a big circle, then you might need to go and get out. Conferences, I can't stress enough how important conferences are. There was a time in my life I did experiment where I'm targeting going to 1 or 2 conferences a month. And I still think it would be a good idea. I should still run that experiment again now. But minimum 1 industry conference a month. I mean a quarter, sorry, minimum. You gotta go to 4 a year. If you're not going to 4 a year, number one, that shows me that you don't really like the industry, because it should be fun. That means you're just chasing the money with no interest in the business, and that's a real problem. So let's say you're in the fitness business, you gotta be going to 4 in fitness. And it doesn't need to be in your exact niche, but I'm just telling you, I think it's possible to do big things without going to 4 industry ones a year, or at least you're selling yourself short. Ty, where did great ideas come from? It's a good book. Steven Johnson has the best book on that. I think that's who wrote it, yeah. Good ideas come from diverse knowledge bases for the most part. That's why each of you, I'm going to segue. I'll keep answering questions here. The third thing is, and this again, it's not completely in this book, but there is a quote in this book that he says, no one pigeonholes us better than we ourselves do. So in today's book, Hermenia, she says, no one pigeonholes us. So the third thing that makes this whole deal of life and business go down and making more money, third, broad information sources. So remember how I said you should go to 4 industry conferences a year, but you could still go to more conferences outside of your industry. So for one of my favorite examples is the man who started Red Bull. He's I think Swiss guy. Mateschitz is his last name. And he was on an airplane as a salesman. I think he was selling vacuum cleaners or something completely unrelated to drinks. And while he was there, he read an article, or while I was in an airplane going to Japan, he read an article that said the largest taxpayer in Japan was this company that was manufacturing a syrupy drink. So again, where did the idea from Red Bull? Did it just this magical, omnipotent idea pop into his brain? No, it was by having a broad information base. And so you should be reading, if you look at the books that I'm recommending for you guys, in this program, we're reading business books. But if you look at my recommended book list, you need a little bit of philosophy. You need a little bit of history. You need a little bit of health, books on health. You need books on, I just interviewed Matt Lieberman was here at my house yesterday. And I interviewed him, and he's a social psychologist. So he's talking about how the brain, how your median prefrontal cortex is your identity. So when you're trying to persuade people, for example, you have to appeal to that part of their brain. People, he said something interesting. He said, and this, I'll be putting in his private videos. I did a public one and then did some private ones just for you guys. And he said, to persuade people, they have to be able to see themselves as you fitting, your product or your service fitting in their identity. So that's why Coca-Cola and McDonald's does commercials when you're watching the Olympics. They have all these Olympians eating, Because then if you're watching the Olympics, your identity is a little bit tied to the Olympics. You then see an Olympian eating McDonald's, and the brain's very sophisticated but also unsophisticated, so it persuades you, well, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. I identify with that McDonald's Olympian. And it works, as simple marketing as that. And Coca-Cola is the master of branding. They use people that look like everyday people. Coca-Cola doesn't use supermodels and all their stuff because they're wanting you to be able to go, oh, that could be me. They use slightly more attractive versions than us. That's what marketing the most effective is, by the way. If they're too beautiful, that works for certain things like Victoria's Secret lingerie and stuff. But in general, you want your advertising to look. I read an article once that said the best ad is like 5 years younger and 20% better looking. But you don't want to, if you're advertising to 60-year-olds, you don't want to show 18-year-olds. There's no, that MPFC, medium prefrontal cortex part of your brain goes, I can't identify with that. So the more, each of you, when you're getting a broader information source, what this book says is most of us pigeonhole ourselves. So this medium prefrontal cortex part of our brains, a lot of you see yourself as an entrepreneur. So you're only going to read entrepreneur books. You see yourself as financial people. You see yourself as fitness people. You got to go more broad-based, because what happens is that's where you're going to catch the new trends. That's where you're going to find the low-hanging fruit. That's where you're going to find the high margin and highly profitable next business venture or next product to launch. So good rule of thumb, some homework here for you guys is, here's the sources that I find to be the most powerful. I've talked to, obviously, books, so nonfiction books. You could read a little fiction, but, and then two types, how-to books, how-to, and then biographies. So these are how-to books, biographies. Make sure you're putting those in. Number two, we talked about, these are in no special order, conferences. Okay, very powerful. Four times a year, okay, minimum. Third, courses. You're in a course right now, a home study type course. Very powerful. I've taken some of the biggest breakthroughs I've ever had, without a doubt. Even almost challenging books have been in courses. Corey Rudolph's course, Donald Trump's real estate course, Carlton Sheets' real estate course. Now I buy infinite amount of courses online. I mean, we just bought one yesterday. One of my staff was asking, we bought one from Perry Marshall. It's like $1,000 or $2,000. We just bought a Periscope one, how to be better on live Periscope. How much was that one, Maya? 1,000. I mean, we're buying them every day. That was $200 one. Some of them are, seminars, which are similar to conferences, but they're a little more smaller and intense. You should go to a few of those a year. Courses, I'm buying all the time. Now, I'm going to throw a few new ones that I haven't thrown at you guys. Annual reports, okay? You got to know how to read an annual report. Why? It's going to, at first it'll seem complicated, but if you read a few, if you read one a month, 12 a year, you'll start to get a handle on them. And the U.S. government and most governments in the world, they require large public companies to just put out a lot of their details of the behind the scenes. Like, you can find out how much research and development, Apple, Microsoft, Google, American Apparel, like you name it, how much they spend. You can find out their revenue. You can find out what percentage of their revenue they spend on staff and what percentage you spend on rent. See, a lot of people don't realize you can just take that knowledge and take the ratios and apply it to your life. Like, most of the big companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple, they're spending $4 to $10 billion on R&D, research and development, which, by the way, for you guys is this, for me too. Books is research and development, conferences, R&D, courses, these are all R&D. And companies that are doing 50 to 100 bill a year are spending about 4 to 10 bill. What does that come out to? 10% of gross revenue is being spent on getting prepared for the next big thing. So by reading annual reports, you start to get, one of you was asking how you structure a deal. When they do deals, a lot of times they'll have to put some of the details on the deal, how much they paid for the acquisition. And so you can kind of learn, okay, they acquired this company for $100 million and it was doing $200 million in revenue. So they paid 0.5 of gross revenue. So you start to get ratios, and it builds your common sense. So annual reports, you can print them right off the government's website, the SEC website. There's other countries have different websites, but you can find it anywhere. Annual reports. You need to be reading magazines. Magazines. I probably get 10 to 15 different magazines. Cover of Forbes magazine in the last couple weeks was this kid who is 29 years old who's buying pharmaceutical drugs that the big pharmaceutical companies gave up on. He took a $5 million investment and built a $3 billion company. He's 29. He's gone from worth zero. He's worth $750 million. So when I read that magazine article, it re-gauges me as a leader, recalibrates what I think is normal. And as this book says, my notes, no one pigeonholes us better than we ourselves do. So each of you, I guarantee you, and I'm pointing the finger at myself, we are completely bounded somewhat by real laws of physics and a lot of it imaginary. Like a lot of you, when I say get 10 employees, you're like, that's impossible. Well, 10 employees, there might come a time in your life where 10 employees is, your personal assistant staff. So by reading magazines are quick ways to get data into your brain. Next, newspapers. Okay, Pete, how many newspapers do I get every day? I think 5. So I like diversity. So I get the Los Angeles paper, because I live here, LA Times. I get a pop culture newspaper, which is USA Today. It's kind of pop culture-y. I get the New York. I forget which one we get. Well, I get the Wall Street Journal, but also get the, what's it called? What's New York's paper? And New York Times? I get the Times. I get Wall Street Journal. I get the London, because I want to read, I don't want to just read what's happening in America. I want to know global. London's a global place, so I get London's, a paper from London, and then I get 1 or 2 specialty ones. There's some Financial Times one, depending on the business you're in. So and I get also Allen Nation has a monthly magazine. It's a farm magazine, so I get that. It's kind of like a newspaper. So you're going to get that. Then, in addition to this, I watch videos online. A lot of times I'll just watch talks on YouTube while I'm checking my, email. The 2 minutes I'm checking my email, or I'm checking Skype sometimes. I check Skype a little bit more than I check email, even though now Skype's under 5 minutes a day. I am also, have videos playing, and I listen to the audio in the background. Recently, I've listened to this general. I read this book you guys have seen on this famous general. He's died. I listened to a 2-hour talk he did before he died. Now I'm going to go and I'm reading a book on Stonewall Jackson. I'm going to find a video on Stonewall Jackson, let it play in the background. So you can see here, and there's other sources. This is not, last one. And then I have my in-person mentors. Okay? So in the last 7 days, today's Tuesday, last 7 days, I had Mark Cuban here Wednesday. We hung out for about 3-4 hours. Then I had this guy, I don't say his name because he's super private, but his first name's Richard, and he's one of the top real estate guys in the world. I think he's a billionaire, but he's very private, so I don't want to intrude and ask, but pretty sure he's at about $1 billion and maybe $2. He understates. I wouldn't be surprised if he's $2 billion in real estate holding equity, not debt, like the net equity that he has. He came over. I only see him. He's so busy. I see him once to twice a year. I don't think I've seen him. Maya, when's the last time I saw Richard? When's the last time I saw Richard? Yeah, a year ago. I think I was in London. So an in-person mentor, I spent 3 hours with him. In the last week, I went to the Thrive conference. You guys see the books that I'm reading. We just bought 2 new courses this week. I haven't gone to a seminar this week. I've read multiple, the last annual report, I haven't read one. I only read one this week. I read American Apparel because they're going bankrupt. Magazines, man, I went on the flight back from Las Vegas, I was reading magazines. I bought magazines, and the lady goes, I've never seen anybody buy that many magazines. So I bought probably 18 magazines. And it was only a 1-hour flight from Vegas. But what happened, it was pretty funny. I think this is ironic. Right when we got on the plane, it started raining in Vegas. They delayed us. It took 4 hours. And you could see everybody bored around, and I was like, this is awesome. I get the most, sometimes I'm like, I should just fly to force myself to read more. Most reading, I read David Buss's whole textbook on one flight to London. It was a 8 to 12 hour flight, depending on where, I think I left from Chicago or something. I finished a textbook, the best 8 hours of my life, really. I mean, I haven't done that since, where I read for, although Warren Buffett, just so you guys know, Warren Buffett reads 250 to 1,000 pages a day. You can Google where he talks about that. And he says now he's in his 80s, so he can only do 200 to 600 a day. Pages, that's insanity, right? So to me, all these count as pages. If I spend 3 hours with Richard or Mark Cuban, I count that as a couple hundred pages in knowledge. Obviously, books, conference, I would count as, you know, a solid, depending on how many sessions you're in, 100, 200 pages. A course, you know, same thing, 100, 200, seminars. Annual reports, you can just count the pages. Magazines, you count the pages. Newspapers, you count the pages. Videos, you know, every minute of a video or something is like a page. So if you listen to an hour in the background, that's 60 to 100 pages or something like that. So when you add all these sources up, leaders who do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you know, so you have 5 to 10 information sources. This is where you will catapult your leadership style. Mark my words. You will be you will be, how do I want to put it without sounding arrogant? You will, well, I'll use a farm term. Joel Salatin, I used to ask him, do you think this business will work? This business will work? It's competitive. He said, Ty, the cream always rises to the top. If you have a milk cow, for many years when I lived on a farm, we had our own cow. Every morning, I had a cow named Betsy for 2 years. Every day, I was a Jersey cow. If you ever seen a Jersey, they're like the brown cows. And every morning, I'd wake up and have the milk. We had so much, on one cow, a Holstein will give you a ton of milk. But that Jersey probably gave us, we didn't give much grain, grass-fed milk, you know, 2 to 6 gallons of milk a day. It's a lot of milk. And a lot of time out there, and I noticed every single time you milk a cow, the cream rises to the top, especially a Jersey has a lot of butter fat. They call it the fat content's high. So for each of you, the way you become a real leader, this point number 3 pretty much trumps all points. Now, you could take this to the extreme and never act. I've just never met any human who is actually too book smart. I never have. I'll tell you what I've met. Some people are going to argue, and you're like, no, Ty, I know this professor that was too book smart, and it just sat in a room, but they were not broad-based. Because when you're reading 15 magazines, you're not just reading magazines about your industry. You're reading a little bit of GQ. You're reading a little bit of Vogue. I bought Maxim. You know, it's one, I'd love to buy Maxim. If it ever comes back up for sale, I missed it the first time. Maxim had one of the best articles I have read. I've read Playboy. Now Playboy took the nudity out of the magazines. Did you guys see that? Playboy has insane. I mean, they have a famous article with Jimmy Carter when he was president. They had Muhammad Ali, but they had Malcolm X and that. So these magazines, when you read, I've never met somebody broad-based that learns too much. I have met people that are too narrow in their focus. So they're a chemistry professor and they just don't know anything. They just chemistry. Then they forget how to pay their bills. They forget how to balance their, you know, their checkbook, and they go broke. That'd be an example. But broad-based learning, I've never met a leader where I'm like, you know what your problem is? You are too broad-based and you have too much knowledge. And I always test it. You know, like I said, Mark Cuban was here. One of the first questions I asked him, you guys will see, I'll put this video. I said, people argue with me. You're worth $3 billion. Do you read a lot? And you guys are you messing with the internet right now? You should go talk to them because we got to be careful right now. We're live. Mark Cuban's like, I read hours every day. That was his exact answer to me. He has a private jet, and he says he likes his private jet. Most of the time, it's just him on the jet. He says so he can just sit in the back. He reads. He watches some TV. He looks at newspapers. You know, this is the game. So the one main takeaway, a lot of you are already reading, but look how broad-based this is going to make you. You know, look at what your weakness. So let's get some comments. Which of these is your number one weakness right now? So is it books? Is it conferences, courses, seminars? Is it annual reports, magazines, newspapers, videos, or in-person mentors? Which one? Ty, please do not buy American Apparel. You have worked crazy hard to be where you are. Well, if I bought American Apparel, that would be a huge acquisition. It wouldn't be just me alone using all my money or something. It's a $600 million revenue company with 550 million of long-term liabilities on that company. Yikes. But a lot of it you could get out. They're in bankruptcy, so you can get out from your leases. They have 250 million in private equity debt, 50 million of Capital One revolving credit, and they got about 38 million still in debt to that 50 million line. So the weakness, we got newspapers, annual reports. You know, I read a newspaper, I read a Wall Street Journal. You guys, I posted a little video blog. Make sure you follow my YouTube because I'm starting to post a lot of what I call video blogs. They call that vlogging, where I just post little snippets of my life. If you want to kind of, maybe you'll find some value there. It's not as in-depth as this program you're in, but it's good. I found an article. I'm pretty sure this reporter read something I wrote and copied me. That's my conspiracy theory. Because what they were saying, it was all about how to do your social media. They talked about Taylor Swift and Beyonce and what was the other one? Rihanna, and what you could learn from them. And the line in the article said, you know, go straight to the top, which was my line. I'm like, damn it, they stole me. They stole from me, but I'm happy to see it. So that article was extremely helpful to me in the Wall Street Journal, you know? Ty, my weakness is conferences and annual reports. Ty, I only go to one conference a year in my industry. Ty, I haven't been to a seminar or a conference at all. Okay. Magazines, I stay away from them, don't know enough of the brands. Let me give you some good magazine brands. Hey, Peter, are you here? Maya, can you go up and grab all the magazines and newspapers that I have on my where I eat breakfast up there? Yes, please. Ty, I'm lacking in-person mentors. This one's tough. You got to oftentimes build up to this one. That's what I meant to put. The 10th one. I knew there was 10. Virtual mentors. So that's kind of what this program is. When I post, that's a little bit similar to videos, but you can do virtual. I have lots of virtual mentors that sometimes I email or video, watch their videos and so on. Someone said their weakness is annual reports. Go down here. Biggest weakness. So yeah, annual reports are a big one. Now here's the thing on annual reports. Bring one of the annual reports, please, Maya. It's the black folders around my bed. I'm going to do some separate videos on how to read annual reports, but I'll tell you, when you don't know how to read an annual report, the answer is go to YouTube, type in how to read annual reports. But for the most part, they're pretty plain English. Just start by skipping the pages you don't understand. Read the paragraphs you do understand. Always start with what you know. Go down. Ty, do you look at all the sections of the LA Times? Absolutely not. So one thing that I like about this system is that as you read magazines and newspapers and all that kind of stuff, you skip around and you learn how to skip around and not freak out. Somebody said newspapers are your weakness. Down here, seminars. All are your weakness except videos. In-person mentors, that's definitely your weakness, you said. You know, there's one other one you could add, which would be masterminds. So masterminds are like small group meetings of like-minded entrepreneurs. Another one would be annual meetings, where you go to like the Berkshire Hathaway meeting. If you buy stock in Apple, you can go a lot of times. Can you get there's a black annual report thing? Yeah. So here's Success Magazine, it has Tim Ferriss on it. I've got Men's Health. There's a great article I was reading in here on paleo diet and stuff like that. This is Wired Magazine. This is one of the greatest magazines of all time, by the way. It's National Geographic. If you're not reading National Geographic, you are missing out. There's all kinds of fascinating. I was reading about the Congo. You know, I have a friend who is almost a billionaire, and I think he's not even 30 yet. And what does he do? He works a lot. He does mining. Now, it's a controversial field, but he knows everything about African countries. Now, I've talked to him, are you exploiting? And he says, no, man, we're not exploiting. He said, there are companies that are exploitative. But he's an expert on molybdenum or something you find in Congo. That's where you learn about those cutting edge things. National Geographic here, I've read this whole thing 2 days ago. It has a whole thing on the Congo River and the countries that it runs through. Time, this was a mistake because this was a special magazine. I thought this was just Time's Important Decisions. I didn't love that magazine, so don't read that one. Time's a good magazine, just not that special edition. Discovery, you always want to keep some science in your head so you can speak the language of, academics. Entrepreneur Magazine, Will.i.am. This guy right here, that's who I went to the Bugatti special unveiling. He was there. There's only about 6 of us. New Yorker, great magazine. Sports Illustrated. Sports is a big part of human life. So if you don't like sports, there's a good book called The Professor in the Cage. Variety magazine, get some good pop culture stuff. ESPN, another sports one. Maxim, that's a good one, because it's pretty. The article, by the way, that's amazing here. They had a good one on Arnold Schwarzenegger. And what I do, by the way, is you can use Evernote. Evernote, write that down. Evernote. It's an app, and you can just take pictures of magazine articles that you like. Where is this article? Such a good article. I remember it was continued on page 96. That's what I remember about it. Yes. So, it's the story of the guy who started CrossFit. Makes $100 million a year. CrossFit. It's a fascinating story. Here, think of the math on this. I paid $3.99 for this. How many people know the inside story in the United States of CrossFit? Nobody. If you know that, you have a tremendous, all of you guys that want to be in fitness, if you don't know that, you're at a competitive disadvantage. And then lastly, Harvard Business Review, good business one. Also, you forgot to bring the newspapers. Charlotte, can you go up there? Did Maya disappear? Did you not go back up? Can you come over here for a second? So there's annual reports, which are in black folders. Can you go get those, please, Maya? Oh, okay. So here, I just print them out and put them in little folders. Most of them are about 100 pages. I don't read all 100 pages. This one's 91 pages. Apple's is 91. You only need to read about 9 pages out of it. Microsoft's is longer, about 120. And then, so newspapers, we've got, like I said, Wall Street Journal. We got Financial Times. This is today's USA Today. We have Investor Business Daily. We got New Yorker, LA Times. I don't know where the London one. We've been having a hard time getting the London one. You could buy one in Hong Kong one, whatever. All right. For those who can't afford magazines, libraries. Also, iBooks on your phone has access to magazines. There's a magazine store in your iBooks. Now, let's talk for a second. If you're in this position where you can't afford knowledge, you got to get out of that position real quick. Why? You should never be that broke. Everything that I just showed you, the annual reports are free, okay? The newspapers, if you got them, how much are those new? I feel like, magazines, if you do a subscription, most magazines are now under $10 a year. Isn't that crazy? They sell the magazines at below price because they want to get a bigger subscriber base to get advertisers. So magazines cost nothing, really. An annual thing, let me see here. Because remember what I just said from this book, the quote, we limit ourselves. We assume that we cannot afford this stuff. But let me grab one of these. Let me see what Maxim is costing right now. I know they're hurting financially. It's $5 a year. Who doesn't have $5 a year on this call? You need to go out there. Here's Entrepreneur Magazine. This one year of Entrepreneur Magazine is $11.97. $11.90, and it's sent to your house. Please tell me there's nobody here who doesn't have $11.97. I just don't believe it. You know, so a lot of times people think, oh man, if I get everything, Ty, this is like, you know, hundreds of dollars a day or something. It's not. It's not, okay? The only thing that might, even conferences, most conferences are relatively inexpensive. Just go with the basic ticket. And if you can't even afford a conference, just go and hang out at the hotel. Most of the good stuff's out in the hallways anyway. Anything else expensive? This is free. Books are beyond cheap now. The most expensive one is usually in-person mentors, because a lot of times you have to travel to them, or you have to spend quite a bit of time building up relationship. Ty, you know any good seminars or conferences in Europe? Yeah, they have that huge one. DeMexico, or it's called DeMexico in Germany. That's one of the biggest conferences in the world. You can go to AdTech. They have those everywhere in the world. You can go to TED Talk. You know how many TEDx talks there are now in the world? They're insane amount. There's almost a TEDx every day or every week. So go to TEDx's website and find upcoming ones. And now some of them are sold out, but a lot of them I don't think even charge any money. Ty, do I read about politics? A little bit, you know. Ty, if I want to pay you $20,000 a year, come to your place of work for you for 1 year, are you okay to be my in-person mentor? I don't really have a program like that, but I do have an inner circle for people who are more advanced, but it works a little different. Ty, what would be the best way to cause, okay. All right, so some questions. So let's transition from this. Broad info. If you want to be a leader, you're constrained by the amount of information that you have and the sources that you have. What other points do I want to talk on? Then we're going to take question and answer, then we'll be done here. Yeah, just a note here, this is on number 1. Most effective managers have plenty of slack in their schedule. Lots of unscheduled time. But let's actually, I wasn't gonna make that its own point, but guys, you gotta have slack. And there's a tendency for all of us to try on purpose to feel alive and to feel entrepreneurial by having every minute allocated of our day. I just saw this movie, The Intern, with Robert De Niro and Anne Hathaway. It's kind of in a way, it's a cheesy movie, but it was interesting because it's about an entrepreneur. It's a fictional story, but when Robert De Niro, it's a comedy, when he comes, his first day, he's an old man, he's 70 years old and he's an intern. They call it a senior intern program, which I actually think is a good idea. If I had an idea, we should do that. It's good to have some 70-year-old people giving you advice in your business, keep you grounded. Anyway, so he comes there, he's talking to Anne Hathaway, he's talking to Anne Hathaway's assistant, and she's like, you can meet with Anne at, or whatever the character name, at 3:55 in the morning, 3:55 this afternoon, or 3:57, and she has a 4 o'clock, so you have 3 minutes. And you know, that's how we think stereotypically that the top entrepreneurs are. It's BS, absolute BS. People at the top have the most time. I'm going to give you the best example of this. This cracks me up every single time I think about it in this last week. So Mark Cuban comes over. We're like, hey, we're going to, stop by the house. So he comes over. He got here around 3 o'clock. He wouldn't leave. I mean, he didn't have anything to do. I was actually going, I think I got to ask him to leave because I had to meet somebody later. I was happy to stay there forever, but I had another thing scheduled. And so, he's got $3 billion. You think he owns the Dallas Mavericks. He is on Shark Tank, one of the best rated shows in TV history. It's done about 180 episodes. He is an investor in 10, 20 companies. I mean, you would think this guy would be like, pop in my house and be like, I got 4 minutes and da-da-da. No. The less successful they are, the more they have no slack, and they have just nothing. So that's one guy. I had this richer guy pop in, same thing. He ended up texting me the next day going, I'm sorry if I stayed too long. He was here for 5 hours, just chatting. And now you might say, well, Ty, that's just because billionaires have other people doing all their stuff. No. That's a habit that they built and they've kept up with for a long, long time. And the reason, it's like the chicken or the egg. You know, people say, oh, well, that's because the egg comes before the chicken. But to get an egg, you had to have a chicken. So it's that classic quandary of which one comes first. And the real answer is it never really comes first. They have to all both be there to work. So the answer is, does money come first, or does a person who creates a lot of slack in their schedule come first? And the answer is they're just kind of coexisting. And I would say, if anything, the slack comes first. Because when you have the slack, you have the time to step back, like Matashitz when he's on a plane and he reads, Red Bull, and he starts experimenting. So you got to have, I would say at a minimum, you try to get to 3 hours of slack. So if you're a parent, this is literally 3 hours where you're not obligated to your spouse, you're not obligated to your wife, you're not obligated to your customers, you're not obligated to business. You're just obligated to stepping back, thinking, reading, broad information sources. If you can do that, as you're in this program, by the time you're done, it's going to, even if you're completely broke, you know, most of you are much more advanced financially, that's why you're in this program. I let in people, just so you guys know, we've now made a decision to let in anybody in this program, anybody under 18 who's like on welfare, single moms, stuff like that. So I've created a charity component to this. Also, any disabled veterans we're letting in free, and people with extenuating circumstances like serious disabilities. We're not letting in people who just go, oh, I don't know if I can afford it, because everybody makes that excuse. But so sometimes you guys are going to see comments now from 15-year-old kids in the inner city, but that's part of this charity program. So if you're more advanced, I don't think it'll hold you back, okay? But you might see some beginner questions starting to pop in here. I try to keep this pretty advanced. I'm going to teach to the more advanced, but somebody says, Gary Vaynerchuk brags about his tight schedule, no slack. Look, there's multiple successful people. I don't ever want to be that way. I admire guys like Warren Buffett, who, my favorite Warren Buffett video I ever saw, this person was visiting a reporter, and he had like pretend this is a calendar, where you know, old school day timer where you put in your daily schedule, and he goes, you want to see something cool? And the reporter comes with the camera, and he goes, look at this. And he just flips through the pages, and he goes, what do you see on my calendar? And she goes, nothing. And he goes, yes. I guess that's a big brag thing. I heard I think it was Jim Collins that said, the true sign of wealth is an uncluttered schedule. Okay? Now, some of you aren't yet wealthy, and so whatever Gary Vaynerchuk does, that's great. I'm going to go with the statistics. I'm going to go with the top people. I do not, and I know, I just had dinner with Gary Vaynerchuk another couple months. Some of it's his temperament. He's a very high, like if you've ever been around Gary Vaynerchuk, he's very like, let's go. And so there's room for differences. In general, no slack, you're going to have a problem. You really are. That's why you see presidents. One of the things I think, happens to presidents, there's this pictures where they show Obama before he was president. He had like no gray hair, and then like 4 years later, he's completely gray haired. There's a definite toll, and I think it's not as good as we think. To have leaders, presidents that have no downtime, I mean, would you just think of it this way? You go into the hospital, you have heart palpitations, you need surgery on your heart. Do you want a doctor who's like, all right, I can fit you in, I just did 6 surgeries this morning, you're gonna be the 7th? No, you want a doctor who's like, yeah, I try to do 1 in the morning, then I relax, cool down, have lunch, take a little nap so I'm rested, and then I'm gonna do your surgery at 4 p.m. It's logic. At the end of the day, no matter what people tell you, for the most part, logic wins. There's a few things in life that are counterintuitive, but when you think them through deeper, they're more logical. Like I said, this is counterintuitive, that having 3 hours of nothing on your schedule every day is gonna make you more successful. That's counterintuitive, but when you think it through, with the analogy I gave of the doctor, of course the doctor who only does 1 surgery a day is gonna be a hell of a lot more effective than somebody who does it 30 times a day. All right, so questions. Ty, good job. Happy to hear you extend hands to others. Ty, I'm a disabled veteran. I'm not going to ask for a refund. So just so you know, here's how it goes for people over 18. If you are, it's not all disabled veterans. I just do it on the buddy system. On the honor system. Here's the deal for disabled veterans. If you're disabled, because some disabled veterans are completely well off. They're doing fine financially for various reasons. So it's not it's not all carte blanche disabled veterans. It's disabled veterans that are truly destitute financially, okay? And I just go on the honor. Somebody's gonna take advantage of me, but that's okay. When it comes to the main people, it's single mothers with kids under 18 who can prove they're on welfare, okay? Why do I do that? Because then it's proof. Because being a single mom, you could be a single mom and a millionaire. And so I'm not letting single moms in who are millionaires. So it's some kind of proof that you actually are on hard times. Okay, Ty, I think I can fit those 3 hours at the money-making schedule from the accelerator. Awesome. Ty, I work hard for my money. I hope you're giving the 67 steps for free and not the accelerator. So the accelerator, we pick and choose. So generally, the more advanced accelerator stuff, I'm not going to give to a 15-year-old. So we pick and choose. There could be a time, though, that there's a single mom who's launching a business. She's got, 2 kids at home, or she's disabled, and or she has a disabled kid or foster kids, and she wants to be in the entrepreneur program. We're gonna let her in. It's on a case-by-case basis. Those of you who pay, don't worry. You're not getting taken advantage of. Okay, I'm not gonna just open it up for. So far, since I've done this program, literally we've only let a handful of people in. So like 3 or 4 people have gotten in, because when you ask people to prove it, then it's harder. All the people who would try to trick us don't. So yeah. Ty, for young guys, how much time should you spend working a day versus relaxing? Look, if you are still in a career or you're as an entrepreneur and you're working, make a little bit less money and knock out some time. You gotta have time, because or else what'll happen? Here's what happens if you don't follow this. You're gonna go up and then you're gonna plateau. And that plateau can last a lifetime. People don't realize, they think life always gets better. Well, if you ask a biologist, the principle of senescence is that your body, your brain, your impulses, your instincts, everything gets worse. So what happens is, if you make a quick jump to an entrepreneur and then you don't allocate time, then you just plateau forever. And that's what most entrepreneurs do. And then since you can't really ever stay exactly the same, people start to dissipate. So yeah. Ty, what do you think about networking groups like Brotherhood or Karma International? Yeah, I'm in some of those. There's lots of those. Those are kind of online Facebook groups that you can join. Experiment with them. Give them 20, 30 to 40, 50, maybe 60 days. If you don't see a direct, tangible benefit, put it on pause and move on to another experiment. Next comment here. Best way to go about pitching an idea to someone like Jeff Bezos. It's usually hard to get to Jeff Bezos, okay? It's possible. Here's my most important piece of advice on pitching. Get to the point real fast. The more powerful the person, the quicker you have to get to the point. Remove any games that people might play. Like sometimes people think if you meet Bill Gates, the best thing you could do, if you've seen that movie Wolf of Wall Street where he's like, sell me this pen. That's kind of like a gimmicky game way of training you to sell. The higher level, and I teach this to all the people in my CEO Protege program. I'm like, when we're talking to Mark Cuban, you talk straight to him. Don't play games. IQ goes up on people the more successful. So if you ever get a chance to meet Jeff Bezos, don't try to go like, hey Jeff, want to be part of a $2 trillion industry? Please, people try that on me. I'm like, oh my God, is this really the best pitch thing people can come up with? There's lots of $1 trillion industries. Doesn't mean you're going to be a part of it. People are like, dude. I mean, you know how big real estate is in the world? I think the real estate and net worth of the United States is $250 trillion. So if I go to Jeff Bezos and go, you want to be part of a $250 trillion country? He's going to be like, yeah, I already am. I'm part of America. It's not like I can then go, if I only get 1,000th of 1% of that market, you'll be rich if you invest in me. Don't do that. I find the best And there's a good book, William Solomon. I've talked about this. I posted on it. It's a book called How to Write a Business Plan. He was a professor at Harvard in the 60s and 70s. You want to get right to the point why you're unique. So when Mark Cuban's here, what I want to say is, Mark, I have the largest nonfiction book club in the world. Mark, my videos have been shown 1 billion times this year. Mark, 300 million people have seen my stuff this year, so I'm launching this brand. I got a big competitive advantage. 10 seconds, Mark Cuban goes, oh, interesting. So it's got to be built around you. This is the ultimate mistake people make. Don't talk about the industry at the beginning. Unless you're talking to low-level investors. They might get tricked. Not tricked, but they might be persuaded by that. You talk to some newbies, but not Jeff Bezos. You go to Jeff Bezos, you want to be like, look, Jeff, like me, if I meet Jeff Bezos, I'll be like, Jeff, I'm probably moving more books for you on Amazon than any one person in the world. Could I talk to you for 5 minutes? Now, you might not have that good of a story yet. And so that's why I said at the beginning, you usually don't pitch to Jeff Bezos. Save that. Try to pitch to somebody who could put 10 grand in your business. Ty, I'd pay again for this program. No complaints from me. Oh, thank you. Time management. With all those magazines, videos, seminar, books, and things, how do you still have time to work? Like I said, 16 hours in a day. 3 hours are going to be, spent eating and showering and, commuting. So now you're down to 13 hours. 3 hours on this stuff, now you're down to 10 hours. If you spend 3 hours with your family, now you're down to 7 hours. That's 7 hours that you can still work. That's a lot. Maya, what was that article you read that said, what magazine was that said working 9 hours a day versus 7, there's no increase? But what magazine was it?
It was
Fortune magazine. The difference between working 9 hours a day and 7 hours a day in productivity is nothing. Work 7 good hours, it's about the same as 9. You can overwork and you can definitely underwork. I don't believe in the 4-hour work week. That's too little. That's not enough work. If you tell any billionaire, any successful anything, you only got to do 4 hours a week, they're going to laugh you out of the place. Trust me. So, but they will agree with you can overwork. Ty, does the slack time depend on the time of the day? No. Just get it in. Slack, for me, I tend to do my slack a little bit in the morning and a little bit at night. I do my so quick note here. My test on myself is pretty conclusive a few things. Me working out hard with weights the second I wake up is not that effective. I'm not as strong, so I can't lift as heavy. I am strongest around 3 to 5 p.m., okay? So I've tested my own body. I've done early workouts where the second I wake up, I hit the gym, and then I experiment, a couple weeks later, we're doing later, way better. It's pretty conclusive for me. Number 2, I've tested immediately working the moment I wake up, also not as good. But I've also tested not working for like 6 hours and just relaxing for 6 hours after I wake up. That's too long. So what I found works for me is wake up 1 to 2 hours of downtime, reading, relaxing, thinking. I catch up a little bit on what's going on. Then about 2 hours after I wake up is when I do my really hard work. Do that for 4 to 7 hours. And then work out. And then a little more knowledge. And then socializing at night. That works perfect for me as far as I've tested. Ty, frequently teach us effective method to read, 15 minutes in the morning, afternoon. If some leaders read almost half a day, would you do the same? Yes. So when I'm teaching people, it's baby steps. A lot of people don't read at all. So how do you choose books to read? I have a whole system of doing that. A lot of you guys just follow the books I'm reading. It's not like I'm not pushing one book over the other, by the way. I'd make a very insignificant portion of my income, very insignificant, from Amazon affiliate, okay? So you don't make much. You make like 5 cents a book that people buy. And most people just type in and buy it on their own. So when I'm giving these book recommendations, they're unbiased. I'm going to be giving you guys the next book here in a second. But Ty, in Fooled by Randomness, Nassim Taleb speaks to the need to limit the frequency with which he reads the news to cancel out his intake of noise generated by the media daily. Similarly, in 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss writes about his need to facilitate a limited information diet. Okay, Often in life, you're going to hear different opinions. Would you rather have a business like Warren Buffett worth $300 billion? Or would you rather, do you want to be an author like Nassim Taleb? Then you follow Nassim Taleb's advice. You know, do you want to be Tim Ferriss? Then you follow Tim Ferriss' advice. All I know is the more I follow the best people, the better my life gets. If you got a neighbor who's in decent shape, he's got a little bit of a pot belly, but he works out 15 minutes a day, you want to follow his workout, or do you want to work out with Arnold Schwarzenegger? I mean, for me, if I have a choice, I'm making Arnold Schwarzenegger my personal trainer. Even if I don't want to be a massive bodybuilder, there's more insight. So I tend to disagree with Nassim and Tim Ferriss, you know. I don't. And I've tested it when I meet high level people, I ask them, they're all more like Warren Buffett. They really are. Ty, if you want to speak to Jeff Bezos, tell me some ideas on how his fantastic site can be improved. You can email him. Go down here. Should a native Londoner in the U.S. move back to London if it would be more difficult, expensive to live there? Anytime you guys have decisions like that, I'm going to take the pressure off. There's no right answer. No one can ever tell you the right answer. So you're going to pick your poison. That's how a lot of life is. I know that sounds negative, but that's true. People go, do I move to London or do I move to LA? Do I start this business or the other? Do I marry this person or do I marry another? At some level, there's better choices than others. There's obviously this person would be horrible to marry. This city would be not effective. But at the end of the day, wherever you go, like the old cliche goes, wherever you go, there you are. You bring most of your problems with you. Most of the problems are here, you know? So I tend to be more of a believer in take the pressure off yourself. Okay, it's like diets. For the most part, if you sensibly follow almost any diet, you're gonna be healthy. I know people are gonna freak out and go, no. Paleo, vegetarian, dude, it's been proven over and over. You name a diet, I'll show somebody who's healthy at an insane level. For those of you who are anti-vegetarian and vegan, I'll show you pro bodybuilders that are 70 years old that have muscle and they have six packs and they're vegetarian. For those of you who say meat and dairy will kill you and dairy causes mucus and all this BS, that's not actually true. I'll show you whole countries like Holland where they eat the most milk and meat and they're the tallest, strongest, lowest prenatal health problems, longest lived people. I mean, the amount of searching people make for black and white truth is beyond my belief. It's the biggest, it's not part of this talk, but it's the biggest thing holding everybody back in the world. Mark my words, myself included. It's like a cancer that you have to continually root out of your system that's always regrowing. Now, there are some things that I think are black and white. The closest black and white piece of advice I can give you is what we talked about today. I think without a doubt, it's almost irrefutable. From a scientific standpoint, from a social standpoint, from a psychological standpoint, from a spiritual, the people, we have brains as humans so we could input and digest information. And so when I'm saying it's black and white, that the more information you take in general, the more productive your life is, because that's how we're built at a core level. I think it's a black and white rule that if you jump out of a car at 80 miles an hour, your life is going to get a hell of a lot worse. So I think there are black and white truths. I just don't think that's one of them. Whether you live in London or United States, it's not going to matter as much as what you're doing there. So what I would do is run an experiment. You know, you don't have to pick up all your things and move to another place. What I would do, go live in if you live in London, go live in the US for 2 weeks. If you don't like it in 2 weeks, it's a bad sign, you know. Then go back home to London for 2 weeks. Then come back to the US for a month. Tests like that. That's the laboratory, the mad scientist laboratory that I don't know what's, you know, I'll tell you something about human psychology that just blows my mind. So I've got a full court basketball or a big tennis and basketball court. Every single new person that I bring that doesn't play much basketball, you know what they do? And you can test this. Test this in basketball. It's hilarious. The worse they are, the harder the first shot they try. 100% of the time. I've tested this on 100 people throughout my life. You give a brand new person a underneath the basket and try to make it there. It's like a lab. You start out with the simplest experiment first to test it. No, everybody goes out at the NBA three-point line and tries to whoosh, throw it. You see girls throwing like this, people throwing, can't reach it, and they miss it by that much. Now, Steve Nash, one of the great basketball players of all time, or if you go to any NBA basketball team, the professional guys, the guys there's 300 million people that play basketball in the world, and 300 of them make the cut to pro. These are the absolute most skilled specimens on the planet. You know how they start out shooting? Every one of them go to a basketball game. They start with layups, just little shots. So this shows you how insane people have become in the world with this black and white, weird inability to test things. So almost all these questions that even if you look through these, you'll see people, what they're really asking is, Ty, will you do the test for me? You have to do the test, man. Somebody says, do you think it's possible to run a business while playing professional sports? Try it. You'll know your answer, because the real question is, can you do it? Somebody says, I've done an experiment on the working volume. In the past 2 months, I've worked about 7 hours a day instead of more, and I've made more money and read more books than before. It could be standard deviation. It could be a statistical, not statistically significant. But if it's working, now try it a little more. So maybe only work 6 hours a day. And what will happen is in your experiment, you'll begin to see, oh, this isn't working. But that's great. Congratulations. I want to see that through this program. This is what I need to see in the comments. Somebody goes, what's the best pitch? Well, it depends on what you're selling and your skill. So what I'd rather see a comment is, Ty, I did 3 different pitches to 3 different investors. One of them, I was super aggressive and I was like, you should invest in me. This will make you rich. Da, 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 da. Another one, I was just really laid back and be like, hey, if you're ever interested, give me a call sometime. A third person, maybe you did one of those classic slideshows, PowerPoint pitches, pitch deck. Now, obviously, again, statistically significant, there's some vagaries to this. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. And I want to see you guys posting that. This is what's going to change your life. Remember what Howard Schultz says, there's no silver bullets. This program is not a silver bullet. What it is, it's going to show you what's statistically most likely to work for you. So I want you guys, by the next 2 weeks, just tell me about your experiment. This needs to be full. I love this person, I don't know your name, 506157. That's the greatest news. You made my day. This is how I know this program's working. You got into the experiment modality, you tested 7 hours a day, and now exactly what this program is built for, you're making more money, you're reading more books. I hope you didn't mention if you feel like you're having a better life. Are you having a better life? I would assume less work, more money, more fun information, is great. Someone says, does this count as work? Try it. Come on these calls. If your life goes to hell after you be on these calls, then don't stay in them. Let me say a few more comments, then I'm going to close this up. We've been on here about 2 hours. Ty, you should put your most frequently apps near the bottom of your phone so you don't have to stretch your thumb. Yeah, so I experimented with that. I found as long as they were on the first page, it didn't matter where that much. But for you, maybe you need that. I just posted a little video on YouTube, my opinion of marijuana. People ask me that because I live in California. What do you think of weed? I've tested it on myself. I did one huge experiment because I have a high tolerance for things like alcohol and weed. I don't get drunk that easy. So I've tested alcohol. Vodka destroys my energy the next day. It's insane. Something about vodka is so bad for me, and I just know it. I've tested it enough, so I don't touch vodka. Tequila, if I'm gonna drink, as long as if you drink too much tequila, but one little shot of tequila, next day I feel the same. Wine, no negative effects on me as long as I just drink so I'm fine with it. I don't drink much. I drink 1 or 2 glasses a month maybe. But there's some science that says wine's good for you, so it's like, okay. Now, weed, when I smoke a little bit, I don't feel anything. So why do I want to smoke it? I don't feel worse or better. Here's a good rule of thumb. Never take a risk on anything if there's no upside. So I'm not going to smoke weed if there's no upside. So one time, I was like, I need to smoke way more. Maybe the problem is I'm not smoking enough. So I smoked, one of my brothers smokes a lot of weed. And so I was like, bring me a ton. So it took me 2, and I got so high that it was fun in the moment, but man, my brain, I counted on a calendar how long till my brain reverted to as quick as I feel it is now. 30 days. I was dumber. Like without a doubt. I tried to play chess. I couldn't think. I was reading. Everything went to shit. So that's the last time I smoked that much. Now for you, I'm going to be in this movie upcoming with Snoop Dogg. He's an artist. It seems like he smokes a lot and still comes out with hit songs. So I'm like, you smoke, you know? You don't have to tell me what to do. And I'm not, it's not illegal in California, so it's not breaking the law. But that's my take on weed. It's just like, for me, I don't give a shit about it at all. And everybody who tries to give me some long thing on it, I'm just like, I already tested it, dude. No matter what benefit it is, I don't want to feel stupid for 30 days. So you smoke it, you know? And then but I know most people, that's not how they come to it. They're either anti, you know, weed or pro weed. There's nobody in the middle. I feel like I want to be in the middle. Ty, I've experimented with the amount of time and investing knowledge in myself, and I'm loving it so far. I'm now testing new advertising in the next month. Someone said, yay for wine, drink cab and stay fab. Ty, I'm going to TEDx Vancouver next month. How do you maximize the experience? You know, there's no right answer. I would prepare by knowing what the speaker is going to talk about. But what I would do is just get in there, and if you're an introvert, bring an extrovert with you. I'm more introverted than people think. So I travel with, like, I'll bring Maya with me, who's just talks a mile a minute to everybody, and then Maya can introduce me to the right people. So that's a great little tool for those of you entrepreneurs who are a little more shy. Find somebody in your company, some friend, some relative who talks a mile a minute, and make them the front person in your social efforts. Next here. Can we experiment with going through 2 to 3 books in a call? Might be a good idea. Ty made a deal for repairing tons of iPads. Made a lower deal because it was bulk. What can I do to get to a higher profit margin? I made a deal repairing a lot of iPads. What can I do to get a higher profit margin? Well, at the end of the day, if you're not moving a lot of volume, your profit will always be lower than it could be, but don't worry about it. Sounds like you're on the right track. Just keep going. Don't always focus on maximizing profits. In fact, Peter Drucker says maximizing profit is the wrong way to look at it. Focus on acquiring loyal customers. Ty, I'm more of a thinker. Could you explain more on how I can use the concept of act and thinking? Yeah, once you hit 38% knowledge base, then you start to act. So let's say you're researching social media. Some of you, and let's say you need 10 hours to really learn about social media. Once you spend about 3 or 4 hours, now start making a social media account. Now make a Snapchat. Now make a Periscope. So that's a mathematical formula that works in game theory. 30, 40%, once you hit that level of knowledge, now you begin to act. So those of you who want to wait till you're 100% knowledgeable, game theory statisticians, mathematicians, Nobel Prize winning mathematicians would say you're acting in an inefficient way. Ty tested out going to conferences, went to one, and though I'm an introvert, I met a ton of people, and it was awesome. There you go. Now, quick note before I give the next book. Once it wins, now you double it as a test, okay? That's a great general rule. So for example, you went to 1 conference in a quarter, and it was awesome. Now try to go to 2 conferences in a quarter, because then you'll start reaching diminishing returns. Eventually, it's too many, and then you pull back. So let's say you tried a new way of advertising, and it worked. It brought you 10 customers. Now you double your spend on that advertising channel. Eventually, you'll reach diminishing returns, and you start pulling back. For those of you who are reading now 1 book every other week, okay, you're reading 2 books a month. Now you need to read 1 book a week. Once that's working for you, then you just keep doubling it until it becomes too much, then you pull back. This is kind of like classic, poker. Ty, I'm experimenting with the Amazon selling machine and with Matt Clark. Bought the course, yes. Thanks for a heads up. Yes, that's a great one for a lot of you. Amazon's a huge industry. I recommended that. I'm an affiliate for Matt Clark's amazing selling machine. It's not a big money source for me, but I recommend it because I really believe in it. I know those guys, and I know a tremendous amount of people have had good results. It hasn't worked for everybody, so yeah. Ty, I feel like I may be moving out of being introverted. It's been less than 30 days. Is this a good thing? Yeah, it depends. You might be introverted, naturally extroverted, but some life trauma made you introverted. So it's good to get, I say everybody's got to revert to their natural state around that. Somebody said, harumph for multiple book calls. Okay, so the next book that I want to read here is this one. This guy's become really popular, okay? So I'm going to give you an option here, okay? For those of you who want to experiment with 2 books, this guy has written 2 books, okay? His name's Simon Sinek. He's a very popular guy now. He wrote 2 books. One of the books I want you to read, and this is the main one, is Leaders Eat Last. The reason I'm a little more focused, okay, on leadership in today's book and the next book is because at the end of the day, the world is lost. People are lost, okay? If you have the ability to lead, it's going to cover up a multitude of other weaknesses you might have. If you can lead people, whether as an extroverted leader or a quiet, introverted leader, they both work, you're going to get access to capital. You're going to get access to leveraging people's time. You're going to get access to marketing channels. You're going to get access to mentors, find new cutting edge trends. You have to be able to lead. And remember, it's not the traditional sense of leadership where you're like the boss. Many generals, I think Eisenhower was an introverted leader and MacArthur was an extroverted leader. They both work. So for those of you who want to try an experiment, we'll do 2 books. He wrote another book that's even more well-known called Start With Why. So I want you to read this as the primary one. I'll talk about both of these. Start, it's right here on the cover. Can you zoom here? So this is the main book for those of you who feel more advanced. So by Leaders Eat Last. Leaders Eat Last, this is the main one, and if you want extra, focus a little better. There you go. Start With Why. That's the secondary book. You don't need a hardcover like this. You can get these books used for very cheap, okay? He says, leaders are ones who run headfirst into the unknown. They rush into the danger. They put their own interests aside to protect or pull others into the future. Leaders would sacrifice what is theirs to save what is others, and they would never sacrifice what is others to save what is theirs. That is what is meant to be a leader. It means to choose to go first into danger, head first into the unknown. And when we feel sure that leaders will keep us safe, we will march behind them and work tirelessly to see their visions come to life and proudly call ourselves their followers. So Simon Sinek, fascinating guy. Yeah, you'll see. He's become a pretty well-known business celebrity. So, Leaders Eat Last. Last few questions here, then we're going to wrap up. Ty, dealing with depression and anxiety through this program, I've read and I'm trying out new experiments. I'm finding my triggers. So, a great book on this is read Joseph Ledoux. There's a book called Anxious. For those of you who have, about 30% of people biologically are inborn a little more depressed than other people. Just the way your serotonin and oxytocin and all the drugs in your brain naturally work, okay? So there's a great, very respected scientist, one of the most respected scientists in the world. He's the head of NYU's neuroscience. He wrote this book called Anxious. For any of you who struggle with depression, past trauma, fear, you must read this book. Now, skip around a book, a few chapters are a little bit too academic. I did a talk. Did we release that book? That book of the day, Anxious with Ledoux? I'll be releasing. I interviewed him about a month ago. We haven't released it yet, but read the book. It's called Anxious. That's it, by Joseph Ledoux with an X in his last name. Ty, I did an experiment with the Amazing Selling Machine, and I've made $100,000 so far this year on that experiment. Boom. Thank you for that comment. These are the only comments that make me really excited, even more than ones people making money, is people going, dude, I'm experimenting. Because here's what I know. Even if this experiment fails, he or she who experiments the most wins in life. Mark my words. You experiment the most, you win. It's almost impossible to overdo it. It is possible. One little word of warning. It is possible to run an experiment for too short or for too long. It's almost impossible to run too many experiments, okay? But you can run them for too long. Do not, if you're dating someone and it's bad for 10 years, you don't tell me that's not an experiment, that's a mistake, okay? If you try social media for 1 day and it doesn't work and you quit, that is too short, okay? The good rule of thumb is you can be running 4 experiments at a time, 1 in health on your body, 1 on your business, 1 on your social life, and 1 on your happiness, 4 every 2 months. 2 months, 67 days. I like that number because it's been proven scientifically that that's the kind of optimal or average time it takes to change our brain. So if you do 4 experiments 6 times a year, that's every 2 months at a time, how many experiments can you do in a year? You can do 20 to 30 experiments per year, right? So that is a great modality. You're testing different things on your body. You know, you should test going to bed real late. You should test waking up real early. You should test high intensity interval. Women a lot of times won't experiment with weights because they think it'll make them too muscular. Try it. If you get too muscular, just stop working out. It'll all go away. It's not. That's like somebody who goes, well, Ty, I don't want to accidentally make too much money. No, you can give all your money away. You can never make too much money because you can always give it all to charity in one check. You make $1 billion tomorrow and you don't like it, that experiment, you can write a check for $1 billion and hand it to, it's legal to give anybody all your money. They might have to pay gift tax or whatever, but let's see. So that would be with your wealth. Socially, try something new. If you're single and you're only picking up girls at bars, stop going to bars. That experiment's been run. I was at this Thrive conference and a guy asked me 100 questions on how to speed read better. And finally I turned to him and I said, how long have you been trying to learn to speed read? He said, I've taken every course on speed reading and after 17 years, I still can't speed read. And I said, stop, listen to audiobooks, buddy. Like this ship has sailed. You needed to do 17 weeks of speed reading and then not everybody needs to speed read. Audiobooks, I'm like speed listen, you know? So Ty, any suggestions about World Financial Group and their business? I think that's an MLM. I don't know them. With MLMs, experiment very lightly. So if you want to know about Amway, Beachbody, World Financial Group, if they require you to invest $200, great. Invest the $200, assuming that's not all your money, but invest $200. Worst case, you lose it all. Do not get involved in the cult until it warrants it. If you start World Financial Group and 2 months from now you made 30 grand, do it more, you know. Do Amway more. I don't think that MLMs are bad or good. I know Dick Marconi, he's the co-founder of Herbalife. You know, ask him if MLMs work. I think he's a billionaire now. Ty, what's the Amazon course called? I sent out an email with a link to it. I actually got, just so you guys know, Amazon Selling Machine was completely closed. Nobody in the world has access to it, except I talked to them and they gave my group, you guys, the people here in this, I call this now the Knowledge Society. I don't want it named after Tai Lopez. So Knowledge Society is the name of what you're part of now. I got them to negotiate. So is it closed now, Maya? At midnight tonight, Knowledge, so look for an email from me. You got to click that special link. It's no gimmick. If you go to Amazing Selling Machine's website, it's shut down. Every person in the world, it's shut down. So if you want to learn, there's a course. It's not the cheapest course. They'll tell you how much it costs and stuff. But it'll teach you how to sell retail things on Amazon. It won't work for everybody, but it's worked for a hell of a lot of people. So you got to look for the email. When did we send that email? Yesterday? Look in your spam from us. Make sure you look. It's from Maya or Tai Lopez. Ty, I'm managing a family restaurant. Recommendations to learn how to run a restaurant to make it profitable. Again, get in there 4 conferences a year. Become a master at marketing. Trust me, sales and marketing is, even though we're talking a lot about leadership, you want to lead in that area of sales and marketing. So I just gave somebody an example recently. They were talking to me about how to start, what was the place? What was the business? Pizza place. A guy in New Jersey reached out to me. He owns franchises in New Jersey where there's, New York and New Jersey is like one of the homes of pizza. So he's like, how can I stand out? My profit margins are shrinking. I said, you got to be bold. You got to lead the marketing pack. I said, why don't you launch a brand called Pizza and Waffles? That is a damn good idea. I gave somebody, whoever listen to that. You guys now listen. Mark my words. I'm not good at everything in business, but I'll tell you one thing I'm damn good at. And I'm only saying I'm good at it because I've tested. I'm good at knowing what will make money. I've never launched a business that I predicted that would make money that didn't make money. Never once. Now, maybe I'm jinxing myself now, and the next business is going to fail. But I know what'll make money. Now, pizza and waffles is not part of what I believe the world needs because it's just making people fatter. But if you just want to make money, that pizza guy, you got to be extraordinary. There's a guy in London who started a franchise. What is that one called, Maya? Remember we were there with Mimi, Icon, and Alex? It's like burgers and crab and lobster. Isn't that what it is? This guy made a $100 million restaurant chain. Google what that is. It's like, Charlotte, you're from the UK. It's like burgers and I think it's lobster and blank. And it's like catchy. You're like, what the hell is this? I got to go try it. You got to stand out from the pack. So most of the time we fail because we try to fit our business marketing scheme into conventional. Like you could take it a little too far. I don't know if I'd make it, pizza, waffles, and chitlins or something like that. That might be a little weird, but. Yeah, Burger and Lobster. That's a super success story in London. They have lines out the freaking door. You can't even get into Burger and Lobster. Google Burger and Lobster revenue. See what it is. Ty, I used to struggle with social life. The past few months, I've tried many different techniques with making friends and attracting women. This had a profound effect on my life where too many people want to be around me and I don't have enough time to be around them. It's awesome. There you go. Now you just apply this to every area of your life. Someone said, haha, that guy made me laugh the other night. Oh yeah, you were on that call. Ty, thank you so much. My life's changed and it feels great. Ty, I've been feeling really overwhelmed lately. I got stuck in the 67 Steps in the Accelerator, got into reading so many books in some areas of health and raising my kids. Any advice? The second you feel overloaded with material, just pull back a little bit. So do a little bit less time in the 67 Steps and in this Accelerator program. Instead of doing, an hour, pull back until it feels normal again. It's just like you're lifting weights. What's the first rule any personal trainer will tell you? If you feel your joints in sharp pain, stop. You're lifting too much weight. Nobody will tell you. There's no personal trainer that will say push through sharp pain. They will say push through regular pain, like you're exhausted, but if you're feeling real acute pain with too much reading, then you just pull back. Ty, experimenting with when my workday starts and ends, so changing your time of starting, huge boost in productivity and saving time traveling. Yes, I don't understand, like here in LA, I'm like, you want to start work at around 10 o'clock because most of the traffic is like 8 to 9. Yeah, Burger and Lobster. Somebody said they're going there at Christmas. What's the most important question you would have to a business advisor for a startup company? Well, that's what this program is about. I've asked that question to many people. I asked Mark Cuban cutting edge trends he sees. Personalized medicine is what he thought is on the forefront. Ty, besides this every other week meeting, how can we reach you? Okay, last thing. I'm going to pop in here. So as this closes, I like doing this because I want you guys, one of the big cutting edge tools that you guys need to learn, okay, is live streaming. It is so big here. So I'm going to, as we end this, can you come type this in? The Periscope closed. Each of you download on your phone. Meerkat is an app or Periscope, okay? Those of you in this program, I am giving you preferred access. I'm actually periscoping and live streaming almost every day, primarily for you guys. Let's do it in the garage. Let's switch the tripod. So I'm going to end this call, and for those of you who are following me on Periscope and Meerkat, every one of you should. It's an awesome tool. And this is a new part of the accelerator that I'm adding at no cost to you guys. 3 to 5 times a week, I or another person who's teaching in the accelerator, we're going live. And if you're in the accelerator, you just leave a comment that says accelerator and then ask your question. And I pretty much am only answering the questions of you guys. So I'm letting other people listen in a little bit, just because Periscope and Meerkat, I've tried to make them all private. So this call we're on is completely private, but 3 to 5 times a week now, you have availability to talk to me, ask me questions. I realized that, when I had access to my mentors, I had access to them literally almost every 8 hours a day, and that helps me. I'm not sure you want to be around me 8 hours a day, but I'm gonna switch over here, and you guys can just switch over. If you have some more questions that I didn't answer, I'll be answering your questions in 2 minutes. So Periscope and Meerkat, they're 2 apps. They're on iPhone, or you can download them for Android. They're also Meerkat. There's also, you can watch on your computer. So download, they're both free. They're completely free. And then you just look for me, it's just my name, @TyLopez, and you press follow me. Then you'll get an alert. So this is an app you want to keep the alerts on. I do keep my alerts on for live streaming. You'll see an alert that says Ty has gone live, and then that's your cue, all of you in this program, to be able to ask me your questions that day. You might have a new question, okay? So to close this out here, we're going to switch over, and what I'm going to be doing here on Periscope is a little bit different, but I will be there to answer your questions, okay? So remember, thank you guys for coming. I'm glad you're sticking with the program. I'm excited for all these experiments. That's the only thing you really can get me excited. If you told me you made $1 million, I'd be like, great. But you can make $1 million and lose it in a day. Mark my words, it's easy to lose money. But if you have an experiment modality, I'm like, even if you lose $1 million, you'll be good. You'll be back in the game. It might take you a week, a month, a year, a decade, but you'll be back. And that's the most important thing, to be resilient. Leaders are resilient. That's another thing from this book, resiliency. I did this interview with the guy who wrote a book called Glass Jaw. You don't want to have a glass jaw. Glass jaw is a boxing term. It means a guy who looks tough, but one quick punch, they're out. You got to have a tough jaw, okay? And how do you get a tough jaw? Leaders have tough jaws. They're not glass. They don't shatter. And so with the experiment mentality, where you lead with experiments, you're impervious from most of the problems that people have in life. You'll always survive, as long as you don't get run over by a car. But there's best of a chance that you'll ever have of survival in this game, business, life, finances. So to close this out, what's the #1 golden nugget that you took away from this book, the talk that we've done today? Remember, you're 56% more likely to act on stuff that you write down. You don't need to take 1,000 notes, but a summary for yourself. I always do that. I don't take notes the whole time, but I'll write one bullet point. So what's your bullet point golden nugget? Leave that comment, and then I'm going to see you guys. I'm just going to walk right here to the garage, and we'll be filming here for a little bit. We'll be streaming, so you guys can ask me questions that didn't get answered. If I didn't answer your question, I'll be answering in a second on Periscope and Meerkat, okay? And Periscope fills up fast, so sometimes Meerkat is better because they don't have a limit. So talk to you guys soon.